That's right.
Perfect. So do I have a motion to open the meeting via roll call vote?
So moved.
Second. Daryl, aye.
Lisa, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. And then Ellen, I don't remember any I guess the only one that I know about is I don't know if I've got the updated agenda. Do I have the 7 for the items to be added as not
7
reasonable?
Course Brook Road.
Yeah.
That's not shown here. That came in late today.
Okay. So can I have a motion to add to the agenda discussion of 7 Course Brook Road?
And if I may,
It's a revision to a previously approved plan.
and if I may, Mr. Chairman, it's an unusual circumstance and an urgent matter. The septic system was already started, and it was found that some elevations were not in the same respect to the original approved plan. So the installer brought that to our attention. So the system is actually being installed as we speak, but it's on a halt until this gets resolved.
Okay. So that seems valid to me. Do I have a motion to add that to the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I think
Yes, I seconded.
Perfect. Any
And-
further?
Sorry, I just jumped
And
on.
I'm
What are
an
we moving and seconding?
Adding
Yeah.
7 Course Brook.
Okay, sounds good.
And Ellen, if you're able to, am I able to ask you to forward those? I'll share them on the screen, but are you able to forward those by email to the other members of the board?
To forward,
The 7 Course Brook?
oh, the document, they're in the Google Docs.
It's in
Oh,
the
they're
Google.
already there?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Perfect. Okay, sounds good.
I think we
so-
have to roll call Matt to add that to the agenda, like we moved it.
Oh,
but we
perfect.
have to-
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
So Daryl,
Yes, I said aye.
oh, Lisa,
sorry.
I. We can't hear you, Daryl. I think it's
Yeah.
going in and out.
Matt Beaver's aye.
All right, so just so I get this right. So you're just reopening the meeting at now 7:03?
No,
Well-
we were adding the unanticipated item to the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we've got Daryl, I, Matt Beaver's I. Lisa, I think you're up.
Oh, I said I already, but I went out of order. So I.
And Matt Vitale, I. Okay, and then Ellen, I'm not aware of any other agenda topics. Am I missing any that come to mind for you?
No, I haven't heard of any others.
So we've got one variance hearing tonight. We've got a working session, which we'll do at the end and which will be closed to public comment. It'll just be a working session discussing it. I guess let's start with the Farm Road 40B discussion, because I don't see Dan and Mark. My recollection is Dan the engineer for 215 South?
Yes, he is.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was just trying to get
Okay.
back.
No worries. So we'll plan to include that in the neighborhood of the variance hearing. And so I don't know if, Daryl, I was not able to attend the select board meeting, but would sort of invite comment from either Daryl or Jeff as to the discussion on the July 14th select board meeting.
Okay, so I did attend. I would say there was a lot of harmony on the issues of concern across boards. There wasn't a lot of discussion of details at that. It was a higher level review, I'd say, with a few items highlighted. So Jeff, I don't know how you would like, and so Marion had drafted a cover letter that included points raised by different groups in town. And that was reviewed, but I believe it was revised, and I have to confess I haven't had a chance to read the revised letter from the select board yet.
Yeah, Marion and I worked on it all last Friday, and then it went out on Monday. It was due on Wednesday, but it went out overnight mail and by email on Monday, the 18th, but it was due the 20th. So it included roughly 5 pages of the overall cover letter, which was the select board input and sort of highlights of the various boards' input. And then it included an appendix with all of the board's full reports, including the Board of Health and all of the residents' letters and comments.
Perfect. And I see Dr. Honeywell joining us as well. Well, sounds great. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Jeff. I saw Kelly Dennehy. I guess, Mark, does it make sense to do 41 Forest Street? That feels like a discussion we could have within the time we have before variance.
Yes,
Does that
Matt,
work for you, Mark?
that works for me, Matt. If you want to
Yep.
bring up
Oh,
plans, I know we have a lot of plans, but
and so, Mark, maybe if you can introduce some of the background, and then Kelly, if there's other pieces, as we have the discussion, we'll sort of look to you to fill in. But Mark will start off by filling us in on the background, and we'll discuss and sort of tag you in as questions come up. Does that sound okay?
That's fine by me.
Sounds good. All right,
so
Mark.
the applicant, Kelly, came into submitted an application for a renovation to the kitchen, which generated a room review. And in reviewing the room count, it appeared from the room review that and I did a previous review too, and Kelly has also provided plans that prior to her owning the house, there was additional rooms put on to the house without any permits that could be found within the Board of Health files or within the building department files. It appears that there was a porch on the first floor that turned into an office. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not labeled office, but I believe it was an office. And the room count is above and beyond the bedroom count that is allowed for this property, which is a 4-bedroom septic system design. And I believe they're up to 10. I'm just trying to get to the plan on the Google Doc. Up to 10 or 11 rooms. So we chatted because we found out from Kelly that there was additional basement rooms we weren't aware of either. So with that said, this is what we have is a building application for renovation to the kitchen, but the present property has, and I'm on the site now, that the Google Doc that has more rooms than what the septic system can handle. I'm on the first floor and it has the kitchen. Go ahead.
Mark, can I just ask Kelly a quick clarifying question?
Sure.
Kelly, in my mental model of this, the screen porch is not heated. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And for the office, is there a full wall between the office and the library that, like, the office is its own enclosed space, access via the library?
That's correct.
Okay, and then the library is accessed by a doorway from the front hall?
There is no doorway from the library into the foyer. It's just open.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
And so, and then I guess the other clarifying question I had, and are the plans reasonably visible on my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to make sure I understood. In the bottom portions, the office is cut off, but at least in looking at the description, it doesn't look like there's any plan changes in the office right now. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay. And so, Mark, as I went through my room count in the existing structure, it looks like what I landed at was 6 rooms on the first floor. I counted kitchen, family, office, library, dining and living room as rooms, and then arrived at 4 on the second floor to bring us to a total of 10 in the existing structure. Does that lines up with?
What, and
Plus
are
the basement.
rooms, are the
Yeah,
basement rooms not? an
Yep.
issue?
And then the basement rooms are at the bottom of the plan. I think if it, where'd I go?
They're on the other plan.
The other plan,
The
okay.
document.
And then there's 2 basement rooms as well.
That is correct. What we have on file from what was provided.
So in this one, so we've got the lower level where the recreation room and playroom are 2 additional rooms. So we've got 10 rooms on the first and second floor. We've got 4 rooms that are defined as being bedrooms because they're on the second floor. And then we've got 2 rooms in the basement for a current total room count of 12.
That is correct.
And Mark, how many bedrooms is the septic designed for?
Didn't you say 4?
4 bedrooms.
Okay.
That is correct.
Said that at the beginning.
And so at least for me, if it's okay with folks, maybe I can open up the comments and then we can go around the board. If folks have additional comments, I recognize the scope of the renovation is not changing the total number of rooms or finishing unfinished space, but I think that, you know, the building permit process is the opportunity for us to kind of make sure that we're compliant, and that if we're not compliant, we're brought into compliance from a kind of gateway standpoint. And so totally recognize that Kelly wasn't the person who finished the spaces. And at least as far as we can tell, they weren't finished with the permit, although we don't know that that wasn't true. But regardless, we're sort of faced with, we've got a 10-room system, a 10-room, a 12-room house that needs to get to 9 to be compliant with the existing septic system. In the past, we've deed recorded basement rooms, and that seems like a potential strategy for those 2 rooms. So I guess first, does that sound right to folks? And are there other properties of the basement we need to know to make that determination?
Yeah, can you just confirm there's no, for the basement, is there separate access? Is it all below grade, or is it kind of a mix of, you know, like half above, half below? And is there a bathroom?
It is all below. There's no bulkhead or entry or exit, and there is no bathroom.
Okay, that's good.
And then Kelly, one question I have, I don't know if you can see on the screen, it sort of looks like as you come down the stairs, there's a door accessing a space, but I just don't know what that space is, kind of just above the recreation room.
Apologies, this was from our real estate agent put this together. It's actually the utility room, so it is a closed space.
Okay, perfect. And so for me, at least, the basement rooms feel like they'd be, again, recognizing that we may not love deed recording. We certainly have done it on many occasions, and this feels consistent with other plans in which we've allowed deed recording for finished basement space to not count towards total room count. Does that sound right to folks?
I would concur with that.
Yes, it's unfortunate that it's kind
I'm
of
really
a,
sorry. It does not feel right to me. I'm really sorry. 3-room difference is not.
We're not going there yet, Rebecca. We're just talking about these 2 basement rooms that there's no separate access to and no bathroom in the basement. That's all we're discussing right now. And then we're going to get to the 10-bedroom issue. So
The 10-room.
He just asked me if it felt right, and I'm answering that it doesn't feel right to me, and I'm really sorry.
So the question is, does deed recording the basement rooms sound consistent with what we've done in the past?
Not until last year. We never deed recorded 3 rooms in a basement before.
There are not 3 rooms in the basement. There are 2 rooms in the basement. We're talking about
rooms in
2
the
rooms in the basement.
yeah, and there's no bathroom and there's no separate access. And we definitely have had for at least 2 or 3 years in that kind of scenario, we have definitely let people use a deed recording. But this is, and just separate out the 10 rooms because we haven't gotten to that part yet.
And so Rebecca, I know in the past you've shared your discomfort with the deed recording of basement rooms, and I don't mean to minimize that. I do think that we've got a difference of opinion about whether that's been a regular practice. In my experience in my 5 and some change years on the board is that it is a practice in situations like this where that space is different. So I've definitely heard your feedback. I think we have a different experience of that. Daryl, it sounds like it felt consistent to you with past practice, and Matt.
yes, it's been going on for quite
Okay,
some
but I
time.
mean, we had somebody living in our basement. We had no windows, no access, no bathroom. When I was growing up, you can absolutely do that. And so that's going to increase the septage in the upstairs bathroom. And so the question is, how far do you go against state regulations? I don't like.
We don't, Rebecca, we don't go around knocking on doors looking if people are in basements. Like that's
I
not how we
don't-
define this, right? Like someone could technically live in my shed, but like
I
they shouldn't.
understand. I
Right.
understand. This is a proxy for what we do. It's just a best guess, honest, let's be honest here. It's the state gives us this random method to try to
I-
make it fair across the board. I'm just
Rebecca,
saying, because
I-
I'm an honest person and I like to follow the rules. I'm sorry. It adds up. And so I'm just telling you my opinion. I'm
And
sorry.
I think
No,
if you'd like to
Rebecca-
follow the rules, we should follow the rules. And the rules are that we've done this in the past. And so you're welcome to object. And as we discuss every time this comes up, we're welcome to discuss changing the rule. But at the
I
moment,
don't
this is
think you
consistent with
need
past
to be
practice.
disrespectful. You know what? We didn't do this on the board before last. This is my third board. And I can tell you that we were very honest. We tried really hard to follow the rules because we understood that in the big picture, we're talking about the big picture for Sherborn. We have private wells. You have no statutory protection. We're just trying to do the right thing to protect our natural resources.
Okay, so
That's
I think we're not gonna see eye to
Yeah.
eye on this, so we should move on.
And
think
I
the
just
only
want to
other-
make a quick correction. I've been on the board even longer, and this has been done for all the years I've been on the board with
and
other
another
mixes
thing
of people on the board.
We never had a 3-room discussion.
It's not three
Again,
rooms.
So we're gonna
Not three
table, it sounds like for the basement, 4 out of 5 feel that a deed recording could be a strategy if acceptable to the applicant to manage the room count implications here, given the specific features of the basement. I think the other clarifying comment I would make is that, Rebecca, you said that, there are these random rules to do it, and I disagree that the rules are random. I think there's a rationale logic both to the state regulation and our own. I think moving on to the question of that would then bring us to a 10-room count. And again, I kind of welcome the round robin discussion. For me, I kind of can't get from 10 to 9 because there truly are 10 rooms and we need to get to 9. The only solution that I could I think the screen porch doesn't count as a room, nor did we count it in our count because it's not heated or conditioned. But I think the kind of the finishing of the office or whatever brought this into a 10-room count is sort of the issue. And so at least for me, I couldn't come up with a way that it would work for 9 unless the library and the office were combined into a unified space. Or, again, the set of bedrooms upstairs, but I thought that was less likely to be appealing, but I sort of didn't see anything else that got me to 9. Did anybody
the
else?
Yeah,
Dining, living.
Like if that
possibly.
was a common space?
There were no walls.
yeah,
I agree. I
agree.
have a hard time getting to 9. I think library office is difficult too. You don't see it on this plan, but if you look on the original plan, and Kelly, clarify for me if I'm wrong, but it basically looks like there's a masonry chimney in between those 2 spaces.
That's correct.
And so that becomes a unpalatable problem too.
Yeah,
To join those rooms because you got to take that chimney out to really get it done. So I think that's not a good option. And so I think the sort of dining room, great room, does that become a single space? That might be an option.
can you zoom in a little on that, Matt? It's just a little hard to see.
Is that
So-
better?
Yes, so to basically unwall the dining room.
Or just to think about how do you make a conjoined space, which is my sense is the options are we need to reduce the room count by 1, or a different septic system needs to exist. And Kelly, I don't mean to say that lightly because I can only imagine how unpalatable both of those are. But I think this is just the issue that if a previous owner sort of did things that didn't work,
Non-compliant.
yeah.
I completely understand the perspective. I think what happened, just based off of looking through some of these records, is that I think, and the caveat is that I have only been living here 2 years. I think the old kitchen space used to be in that living room that's in the front of the house. And the old kitchen used to be the garage. And so when they moved the kitchen, they naturally had this other space, and that's how the room count increased by 1. Because I do think that going through the plans, I did see plans for the office that presumably went through Sherborn. We are planning on opening up the walls between the family room and the kitchen. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's just some additional information.
That one doesn't necessarily address because those are pretty
Totally hear you.
distinct functions. Oh,
Yeah,
can't hear me?
the kitchen's always a sticking point because that is a distinct functional space.
Sure.
So just to interpret this, it sounds like the office has been there. The kitchen used to be a garage. It got finished and now you're above.
Yes.
So that makes sense to me. Unfortunately, it just sort of doesn't change the predicament we're in,
Sure.
which is we got to get back down by a room.
And so I guess what I'm hearing from everybody is, and again, Kelly, we don't say any of this lightly, like as the plans exist right now, it doesn't sound like there's a way that the room count works with either state or Sherborn regs. The solutions need to kind of reduce the room count by one. The ways that could happen would be living and dining being one, kind of doesn't have the same issue if that's sort of a common great room, that kitchen and family being joined doesn't solve because kitchen is a unique pattern of use. You know, or again, recognizing that it is quite uncommon for people to want to consolidate bedrooms, that certainly would do it as well. Because that would, I guess we have a 4-bedroom system, so we're fine with 4 there. And it would help the room count. But at least for me, I can't see how to get there without something like that, where we can say the room counts down by a room.
So we would need to physically open the wall between the dining room and the living room?
I think
that
so.
what-
I mean, again, we'd want to see the plans, but I think it's really the question of, we certainly have some asymmetric spaces that we say this is a great room or this is an overlapping, you know, like not uncommon to see not perfectly square rooms that we say, this is a room, this is a common space. So at least for me personally, if that kind of this corner weren't here, you know, to me, you could say this is a great room or something like it, and that would be consistent with how we've treated these rooms previously. It would sort of pass the gut check for me and feel approvable.
Yeah, I'm happy to take photos of this space. There isn't a set door on the side hallway. So the side hallway that's going from the kitchen into the dining room, there is a big opening and it's not you can't close it. It's not a door. And then another one on where the entry is and the dining room. So it's not like a closed room that has doors to it. I don't know structurally what we could do to remove the wall between the dining room and the living room. I can certainly check with our contractor. We would be open to doing it personally. I think we would probably like it to be open. But I'm happy to take photos as it currently exists and send those over.
I think that could be a helpful next step. And again, I don't think we have a strong agenda about what strategy is used to reduce the room count, but I think we're trying to say, as the plans exist now, the room count is in excess of what's permitted for the system. That's one strategy. If there's other strategies that you guys have that you want to bring forward, you're certainly welcome to do so. So I don't want you to
The other option might be, but Mark, your input would be needed on this, is if they have a post 95 system, it could be possible to add to it to get the extra bedroom.
But that
addressed.
that would require no variances, correct?
I think so, yeah, right? Because
Yeah,
And
that-
Mark, do you
that
know
feels
what
right.
the status is of the prior system that was in there?
I can't remember the year. I do have it on the building plans. I believe it's about 30 years old, but it was.
Oh, okay.
You would
So-
have to determine the acreage, and it would have to meet all new construction.
And the acreage is tough because I think it's 1.21 or 1.24.
It's so close.
And so that, I don't know. So it's 4 bedrooms per acre, but it's also often treated as 40,000 square feet. So that's
That's
cutting it
correct.
close.
You'd
So
have
it
to-
might just make it for a 5th bedroom and it might not. So maybe, well, so Kelly, if you're interested, we could ask Mark to pull the old plans to see whether that is even an option. It has to be a system of a certain era to be able to do that.
I am interested in any resolution, so I'll take any information possible.
So maybe,
I think-
oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say, just to sort of boil it down for Kelly, basically the options are reducing the rooms by 1 or increasing the septic. And each of those have sort of trade-offs and costs associated with them. And so we can certainly do what we can to help you figure out what your options are.
And if I can just add, if it is built after 1995, which I don't believe it is, you could add on to the present system. If not, you would need to put in a replacement system.
A whole new system. for
That is
5
correct.
yeah.
But Mark, I think we've had some confusion in the past, just because I think we spend a lot more time thinking about this than applicants do. So Kelly, in order to add on to that system, you would need to have soil and property conditions that the addition wouldn't require variance, which is often a relatively high bar. So certainly some properties can do it. And we've got a property we're talking about tonight that was able to sort of, pass everything, do new construction, no issues. But it can sound like, oh, no sweat, we can just add this on. And it depends not only on the age of your system, but the properties of your site and not needing any variance to regulations to do that.
But
And if I
oh.
may, I'm sorry, I just want to note that if it is a base of 4 bedrooms and she's going to 5, she can request waivers as long as it doesn't affect people where they would not ask that the waiver be allowed. So that base of 4 bedrooms going to 5 possibly could allow for waivers as long as they're not state waivers, but local waivers are considered by the board.
you mean variances, basically.
I'm sorry, variances, yes, I should be saying variances.
So a quick question though, if for whatever reason, it's decided that altering the room count isn't feasible and adding onto the system isn't feasible, and that the only way to, get into compliance is to build a new 5-bedroom septic, would they also need to not have variances on that? Because it's not in failure?
I mean, I think what we did for the one that we just did on Woodland, right? That was a replacement system that added, right, for the one we did last meeting. I think that was the one
Yes,
that
last
did-
meeting yes, it was an older system, so it's a complete replacement, but we had to look at the state letter of October 12th, I think of 2001.
Yep.
And it was based on gallonage. That septic system had sufficient 600 gallons actually applied to it at the beginning. So that was a little different because that had to fall under the state notice in that letter.
Okay. So for next steps for Kelly, it sounds like Mark can help pull the plans for the existing septic to help determine the properties. Kelly's going to provide pictures to Mark to help contextualize the intersection of living room and dining room space. Kelly's going to explore with her builder the feasibility of making the living dining room space a joined space. And then from the basin standpoint, there's nothing for us to vote on since we sort of need the follow-up for those first 2. But Kelly, Mark can explain kind of the deed recording piece to you a little bit as well separately. Does that sound right? And am I missing any follow-ups?
It sounds right, and Kelly and I did discuss deed recordings for basement rooms prior.
Perfect. Well, with that, Kelly, good luck.
Thank you.
I hopefully so one of these options will end up working well for your project. And with that, we'll go to the 7:30 variance hearing.
Thank you so much for your time.
Have a good night.
You too.
And Dan, I think I saw you.
Yes.
Perfect. And Ellen, Daryl's had lots of practice, so bear with me. Do I need to have a motion to open the hearing?
Well, first of all, I have to let you know
Oh.
that we did get the certified list of abutters, the copy of the abutter notification letter, and the certified mail return receipts. And everything was in order, so the hearing can be opened.
Perfect. And do I need a motion to open the hearing?
No.
Perfect. All right, Dan, let me start actually with your plan. So this is for 2 Moore Street, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Do you
So
want to?
for the record, Dan McIntyre representing the homeowner at 2 Morse. They were experiencing some problems with their existing septic system with some ponding and backup. So they wanted to put a new septic system in, we were retained to do that. This is right on the corner of Morse Road and Lake Street. It's the first house on Morse Road. It's about a little over an acre property. It does have some wetlands in the rear of it. The soils were very good. It's a nice sandy soil down in that area of town. The existing septic system is right in the front yard, and the well is in the back. And really the only place to put the replacement system is in the same location. As I said, the soils are very good. We did find groundwater table there, which was approximately the elevation of the wetlands. And then we added a correction factor to that based on the Frimpton method under the Sherborn regulations, because we really didn't find any models above the observed groundwater. And with that, we still had, a 6-foot offset to groundwater on this area. So it's a conventional system, septic tank, stone and pipe leaching trenches. Fully meets Title V, but we do need a couple of waivers to the variances to the Sherborn regulations relative to offset to wetlands and offset to wells. This subdivision was built in the early 70s under the state code with a 100-foot offset to wells. So it's pretty common in this neighborhood to have to need that variance for replacement septic systems. In this situation, it's 3 wells. The on-site well, we can just hit a little over 100 feet from that. And then we've got a well across the street from Morse Road at 33 Lake Street. And then across the street on Lake Street at 32 Lake Street, where we can't meet the 150-foot and 175-foot. So the well at 33 Lake Street is down gradient. And because of the soils being less than 2 minutes per inch, it becomes a 175-foot offset. We can make 160 feet, which is well in excess of Title V's 100 feet. And then across the street on Lake Street at number 32 is up gradient. So that would be a 150-foot offset, and we have a 120-foot offset. And these offsets essentially match what's there today because the system is essentially in the same location. And with respect to the wetlands, we kept the system out of the 100-foot buffer, and it's been reviewed and approved by conservation. It's just the septic tank that was into the 100-foot buffer, but nothing closer than 50 feet. And as I said, it's been approved by conservation. So I think with that, we're not asking for any additional bedrooms. It's a 4-bedroom house based on the actual room count, and the 1970 design plan had it as 4 bedrooms. So we're not asking for any additional bedrooms. So with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
I'd have to say this
Oh, go
looks
ahead,
like,
Carol.
okay, really, there's only that triangular almost piece of land on the lower left that's available for the system. And then once you try to get set back as much as possible from the wells, I can't really see many other choices for this.
I think
So
it
it
was
seems
there
reasonable.
before, right, for a reason. Yeah,
Yes,
it was the best spot.
Yeah, and I would agree if I may interject. The only question I would have, are there any abutters that are reviewing this with us tonight? If that's okay, Matt, I should go through the chair on that, through the chair.
Yeah, no worries. Hearing none. So it doesn't sound like we've got other comments or questions. If that's the case, I will move on to voting on the variances.
Sounds good.
Do I have a motion for a variance to section 10.1 BC for the well separation of 175 feet is required for downgrading at wells in areas with soil less than a 3 MPI percolation rate. The distance of 103 feet is provided to the on-site well and a distance of 160 feet to the well at 33 Lake Street.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca, I didn't hear you. I don't know if others did. I saw you, but
Yeah, I didn't hear either.
I said Rebecca Honeywell, I. Can you hear me?
okay. Matt Vitale, aye. Do I have a motion for section variance to section 10.1 AC for well separation of 150 feet is required for upgradient wells in areas of soil with less than 3 MPI percolation rate. A distance of 120 feet is provided to the well at 32 Lake Street.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Yep.
second.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. And do I have a motion for variance to section 10.2 wetland offset to be 125 feet with 102 feet provided?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second,
Any further discussion?
I'll just note that this passed or was reviewed and approved by Conservation Commission.
Yep, and
So-
it meets the Title V requirements.
So Daryl, I.
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. And Mark, are the plans ready for approval?
Yes, I don't know if you want to close the hearing first, and then I'd be more than glad to
Oh,
recommend.
perfect.
approval.
Do I have a motion to close the hearing?
No
Uh,
motion
so,
is needed.
Yeah,
don't
usually don't
need
have
to.
to.
Okay,
Okay, then I would recommend approval of the plans conditional to a deed recording for the section that they're not designing for a garbage disposal, so they'll have to recognize that on a deed recording.
perfect. Do I have a motion to approve the plans conditional to a garbage grinder deed recording?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. Perfect. So it looks like we're set on Moore Street, and I think since Dan is involved in 215 South Main well deepening, I thought we could do that next just to kind of hold those together, because I think everybody else arrived in pretty close order in terms of other pieces of agent business. Any concerns with that?
Not for me.
Perfect. So Dan, do you want to just give us the background here?
Yeah, I don't think that's me.
Oh, not you. Never mind then. Well,
All
then,
right.
no,
But thank
no
you for
worries.
2 more, though.
Our pleasure. Have a good night, Dan.
You too.
And I'm sorry, I should have recognized that. What happened on 215 South Main is the applicant has submitted his previously approved plan from 1998. On that plan, that's the as-built. He's showing the existing well. I went back and reviewed the originally approved septic plan, which noted there were no other septic systems or wells within the required distances for the existing well that's there. And so he wishes to drill into that existing well, and it does meet compliance based on the previously approved plan. I'd recommend approval of the well deepening. And then they will need to follow the quantity and quality requirements once it's drilled.
And Mark, do we need to do any kind of condition for the quantity and quality, or just approve the well deepening plan?
You can approve it conditional to meeting all well requirements, which would include the quantity and quality testing requirements.
And Mark, the reason he's deepening is because of inadequate production.
That is correct. Yes.
And do we have any data about, I think this was a question when we talked about the multiple other emergency well permits that we discussed last meeting. Do we know what the depth of the existing well is? Is that information available?
That information is available. I just don't have it with me right now,
Okay.
but and I haven't looked at it, but it is available because it's a fairly new well. And back in the late 90s, even prior, we were requiring all that information.
Perfect.
Are we compiling that inventory like in a database, Daryl or Ellen? I know we've talked about it before.
Yeah,
that-
they have been. The Groundwater Protection
Protection,
Committee got
okay.
funds for that. But what would be good is to have a special, well, one, updating for these now 4 wells in the last few weeks that have needed deepening or replacement. And that they had inadequate supply for some period of time. I think would be interesting information for
Yeah,
groundwater.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Should we reach out to, is that something we need to reach out to Tom about? or-
yeah, I could let him know. And then when they have another person, I think the prior intern has gone to graduate school or something, so is not available, and they'll be getting somebody new. And then they could check on that when they get back to the Board of Health office doing their research and data collection.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I definitely want us to have that at our fingertips.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this. My general sense is that for the other elements of agent's business, I didn't see anybody who's obviously earlier or later, at least with this.
Did you vote on that well?
No, we haven't yet.
I got so excited, Ellen. Do I have a motion to approve the well deepening plan conditional to the well satisfying water, all well requirements?
So
So
moved.
moved. Seconded.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. Okay, perfect. In terms of the order of the next sequences, I would propose we just go in the order of the agent's business since I didn't see anybody kind of before or particularly early or late. Does that sound reasonable?
That sounds good.
Perfect. So first on that list is the 53 Farm Road. And I think the question is specifically as it relates to the room count in the basement. As we sort of look at the plan, and is it still sharing correctly?
Yes.
So it looks like we've got, from a room count standpoint, on the first floor, we've got 5. On the second floor, we've got 4. And then in the basement, we've got 2. So it brings our total room count to 11 in a 5-bedroom house. So I think the first question is, does that sound right to everybody?
That is correct, Matt. It's a 5-bedroom septic design.
And did
And I
everybody
agree on the
else,
room count.
everybody else around landed at 11? And then
Yeah.
the other one, oh, go ahead.
No, I was agreeing.
Perfect. So the other thing I want to pull up, because the theme for tonight seems to be bathrooms. And so just to kind of refresh people's memory for those it's not fresh in your mind, in terms of the room count parameters as it relates to our regulation. So I think the ones that are most relevant for the 3 sets of plans where this issue came up with tonight is that any room not equipped as a kitchen on any level that has a door leading directly into a bathroom with a tub or shower is considered a bedroom. And then further down, to be counted as a room, the space must be habitable per the Massachusetts Housing Code. And so for each of these, I think our question is whether there's a full bathroom with a tub or a shower, and whether it leads directly to a room. And that's sort of, I think, what we have for all 3 of them. So let me bring up 53 Farm. And so it sounds like, again, no issues on the first floor. There is a master bedroom that is opening into a full bathroom. And then we've got 4 rooms on the second floor. So that fits with the 5-bedroom count. And then it's really just thinking about how we want to handle this space and whether sort of how that's counted in terms of which area we associate with and how we differentiate those. So I'm happy to open up kind of my thinking about it unless others have strong feelings. Does that sound okay?
Go for it.
I mean, so for me, it's clearly a full bathroom that's present here with the tile shower in there. And I think the question is whether the current separation of the recreation room and the entry and gym, kind of from a room count standpoint, I counted that as 2. I think as we compare this to some of the other plans that we are going to look at tonight, this sort of degree to which the entryway is obviously a hallway is a little bit more subtle to me on this one. I think that, again, we've got the demarcations of the room, where the gym sort of has this little kickoff and the sort of bathroom has a little kickoff. The bathroom kickoff looks to be about 4 inches, but again, I think that it's sort of separate from the recreation room with that turn. And, it really is this question of whether the entry is separate from the recreation room, which I think somewhat goes to, sort of how is this laid out and how do these connect? But from my standpoint, I think that's a subtle question. I'd love to hear what people think. But that feels like the key. It doesn't open into the recreation room. So it's really just the question of whether labeling entry on this plan is sufficient to make that a distinct space from the recreation room where it shares a fairly large wall opening with.
Is that line that's to the right of the gym? So the wall around the gym, it only extends, part way, correct? And that's just all open. So
Yeah, and Bob, I don't know if your builder's here in terms of my read of this is the gym wall extends down, cuts over, and that there's then an open section that joins the recreation room and the entry. Is that accurate?
Recreation room has an open cased entry into it. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And Bob, that's what I'm highlighting on the plans here. That's an open case entry.
That's an cased opening, correct? Yes.
Okay.
So Matt, I guess is your question, are you getting at to, so is this really a 6-bedroom house? Is that the question?
I think for me, the question is we've traditionally defined a bedroom as any room that is directly connected to a full bath.
Right.
And so does this full bath connect to a room in such a way that that makes this a bedroom? Yeah.
Right, which would bring it to 6 instead of 5, right?
And I think where I landed for me, although I find it hard, and that's why I wanted us to discuss it tonight, is, like, let's imagine, and again, I'm not saying this is a requirement to approve it, but if we imagine that the recreation room entrance were smaller, then to me that, like, if we sort of imagine the gym and the recreation room, instead of having a large opening as being essentially relatively narrow opening, then it becomes really obvious that the entry is its own unique space. I think part of what I struggle with is if we consider like the 41 farm, when we talk about connecting rooms or joining spaces, like
Right.
what degree are those separate or the same? I think for me, I landed with some, kind of struggle around that and saying, like, I think that this opens into the entryway. And so long as that is clearly and meaningfully different from those other spaces, I think it could be approved, but I struggle with that distinction because I think, again, this, Bob, how big is that opening between the entry and the?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. How wide is that?
I haven't scaled it out, but to my eye, it looks like a 6-foot cased opening.
Yeah. And that, again, I don't say that that's the part that feels hardest to me is just in terms of thinking about those spaces. But I think other than that, I felt like we'll see other plans tonight where it's really clear. And it may not fit with the intent of the regulation, but the intent isn't the question, it's really the language. And the language says directly into a room. And, we don't count an entryway as a room as we do room counts. And so I think that the same rules would apply here. But again, I really struggled with this one. Love to know what others think.
So I think as I looked at it, I thought about, if I imagined that there was like a set of French doors going into that gym and a set of French doors going into that recreation room, there would be no question in my mind that the entry is a hallway and we're opening into a hallway and that's that. So you can sort of imagine those as clearly separable spaces. And it is true, we've sort of, as we thought about, and then the other thing I thought about was like in the past when we've had, worked with people to combine rooms, have we considered a 6-foot cased opening to be sort of a combined room? And that's really right in that sort of border zone where we maybe do, maybe don't. I think one question that comes up for me a little bit in terms of sort of defining that entry as really sort of an open hallway space rather than a private space is what does that staircase there look like? Like, is there a door sort of separating this from like the other living spaces, or is that like an open baluster staircase that's really, you're really sort of open to the rest of the house here?
No,
I
it
don't know.
would be, no, Matt, it's a basement staircase. It's
Okay.
not open to above, no.
Okay.
So there's a
Matt-
door, between the first floor living space and that staircase? It's a door?
There would be a door at the top of the stairs, but not at
Okay.
the bottom of the
No,
stairs.
No, I think that's what we were asking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, so basically, how wide a space constitutes, sort of the deconstructed, open space that is very common in a lot of houses now. And so if I could imagine, like, if 3 people could fit through the space at the same time, that feels pretty wide to me. But it's certainly, there's nothing, like you said, it's gray. It's kind of a nuanced question of when is an opening really open space versus a distinct space.
And I think for me, what I landed on is, if agnostic to the bathroom question, if we just said, this is a sort of generic room counting question, I think that it is often the case that, there's sort of some of these subtleties about, are these really 2 rooms or 1 room? I think in this case, it sounds like we uniformly landed at 11 rooms, which would really say, kind of mentally, we each counted these as rooms. Like, this is a room, this is a room, as opposed to like one super space, which you'd then say entryway isn't there. I think if that's our counting, again, like, the reason I think we need to talk about it is because of the size of those openings. But
Matt,
I think-
Matt,
yeah.
can I make a comment here?
not yet, Bob, but I'm happy to kind of get back to you after the board.
So actually,
finish that piece.
I do want to say one thing that really adds on to what Matt says, and I think that's a good point you make. Like, we all counted the rec room and the Zoom as separate rooms when we went through, and so that was sort of our gut, is that those are 2 separate rooms. And if they're 2 separate rooms, then they're connected by a hallway, which is the entry, which is what the bathroom opens into. And so in my mind, that tells me that if we're counting them as 2 rooms, then the entry is the connector and the bathroom does not open to a room, and then I'm okay with it.
And I
That
would
makes
say
sense.
that's,
I like that
just-
logic.
yeah, that's a distinction that we didn't have. We just made a similar kind of ruling for a basement room on 59 North Main, where there was a room and then there was something that somewhat looked like a hallway leading down to a full bath, but it was all
So-
self-contained, basically a basement
Yeah,
by
I looked at-
itself.
I looked at the 59-9. I think the 59-9 are the plans you're talking about. I looked at those, and those look different to me in that there was sort of like a super room with a bathroom on it. At least if I was, I'm not totally sure those were the same plans. They're the ones that most looked like it when I was digging back. So it looked at least a little bit different than this to me, so it felt consistent.
Okay, so I was going someplace a little bit different with that, but I'm just saying that this idea of it being off a hallway. But between looking at it as different rooms, for me, where this could either be viewed as a suite or not is the door from the garage into the space that then leads to stairs. So an issue for me would be that there should not ever be a door placed there parallel to the door coming in from the garage that then isolates the stairs from the space.
So
I would
so
feel
for you,
very
Sarah,
differently about it in that case.
And
So
so
I
for
think-
you, I just want to make sure I've got that. So if there's sort of
Yeah, if
I-
there was a door,
that closed it off here or something else where it was more of a suite layout, that would change how you think about it.
Yeah.
Whereas now with the
Yes.
direct opening from the
I think
garage.
to sort of restate that in a different way, we've traditionally not called things bedrooms if like you had to pass through them to get to other parts of the house. And so in this case, you have to get from the garage to the rest of the house, you have to pass through this open space. And
Yes,
so that sort of makes that a hallway and not a bedroom. But if there was another door there so that you didn't have to go into that entry space, then that would become a bedroom suite. Yeah,
Yes.
that makes sense. So I think for me, I'm landing at a lot of reasons why this is okay and
Yeah.
consistent with what we've done in the past.
And Lisa, I think I heard you say the kind of the rationale that Matt had articulated about if there's two rooms and they're connected by something, it's a hallway. It sounds like you're comfortable. Am I sort of, do I have that right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and I think it's consistent sort of with precedent, but I do think, you know, as time goes on, we're gonna have to probably get some more specifics around what we consider, you know, open space suite versus what we consider a room, because you know, it's only gonna get grayer, I think, with
Yeah,
time.
I mean, I think we definitely see that with the series we're looking at tonight, where we have like multiple instances that have sort of variations on that theme. And so I think that, again, like, I don't think it applies. I don't think you're implying that this is the case, but I think for tonight, we really just have to stick with the regulation we have, which is like it opens directly. But I think you're 100% right that there's a pattern of use that's continuing to evolve, that we, you know, again, if we're worried about the sort of in-law suites or the au pair suites or other things that may be different than the current pattern of use as this house is built now, you know, what happens in 40 years. I think we definitely could think about that as we kind of go through regulatory revisions. For tonight, you know, it sounds like we're there in terms of saying it meets. And
Matt,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry to
ahead,
interrupt, but I'm on call and I'm getting called, so I have to step away for a second.
okay, thanks, Matt.
okay, and I have one other question on the windows that are on the right-hand side of the recreation room. Are they basement windows or are they full-length windows?
No, Daryl, they're wells.
Okay. So the garage side, so that side of the house is buried into a slope. The other side where the garages are is open.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Rebecca, any other comments from you? And if not, then I'll go to Bob for his previously held comment.
Yeah, so, you know, once again, I don't feel comfortable with all of the reasoning. I think this would be a really nice place to live someday. If it's not right now intended, it could easily be converted. And so I don't know. I mean, we're trying to think of what the big picture is. Why are we doing things the way we are? We're just trying to be precautionary so we can do the right thing in the big picture. So of course, I don't agree with you all.
But I guess, I mean, Rebecca, I don't think this is a big, I mean, I think it's actually a very specific regulatory interpretation where we've got 7.1, which is the pertinent regulation. And so that regulation isn't, like, you could imagine a revision that says any floor that has a full bathroom will be considered to have at least one bedroom, but that's like not what our regulation is. If we want to minimize the risk of somebody doing that in the future, we would need a regulation like that to depend on. I don't think we can say we're counting rooms in this way in this context, but we wouldn't have counted it that way in a different context.
Yeah, I understand how you think. And we just see it differently.
Then you need to propose some regulatory language that you think will tie this up and differently.
And again, I think that then also needs to be uncoupled from any applicant's project.
Right.
And so again, like if you want to do that and want to sort of introduce that, Rebecca, you're definitely welcome to. But I don't think that that's like it's not specific to this project or any. I mean, we see multiple properties where thinking about how the bathroom counts will be one of our questions for tonight.
And we're setting lots of precedences.
We're
following a precedent.
We are
We're not saying.
following them. That's right.
I mean, I think
not a
it's
precedent.
actually not, we're literally following our regulation, and that's like what our job is. But Bob, I asked you to hold, and so let me give you, I don't know if your comment's so pertinent, but if it is, feel free. Otherwise, we can move forward to voting on the permit.
Yeah, I'll be really brief, Matt, because it's already, I think Matt and Daryl both mentioned it, but it hadn't been mentioned when I tried to jump in, and that is that the garage enters into that entry area, which is why it's called an entry. And so therefore, the concept of having a suite down there doesn't work, because to get into the house from the garage, you come through that area. You know, the whole household of people need to come through there to go upstairs into the, you know, main part of the house. So anyway, like I said, Matt and Daryl already said it, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. And so, Mark, in terms of what you need from us, do we need to vote on this, or do we just need to provide you with the guidance to approve it?
I have your guidance, but I would suggest a vote.
I think so, and I think that's
Also, can
Okay.
we vote on this since it says it's just a review set, not
Yeah,
for
he's
construction?
That's a good point, Daryl. There will be a need to, when the building application's uploaded with this new plan, it can't say preliminary or not for construction. It'll have to be updated.
so. Why don't we vote on it conditional to that being provided? I think. Yeah.
Can we add a condition for the well being protected, even if with temporary measures like Jersey barriers, something?
So I
Nervous
guess-
about construction going on with the well exposed.
Yeah, I mean, Bob, I know you and I talked about this when we talked earlier in the week, and the intent that you communicated to me at that time was that I think one of the issues, and again, if I misquote you, please feel free to correct, is that currently in place is material that was required to get the well rig in place to drill the well. In order to remove that, we'll need to have kind of heavy equipment that will be on site for foundation preparation, site preparation, and your intent would be to add the barriers in place when that is when that machinery is on site and able to remove the fill that was put for drill access. Am I stating that correctly?
I think that's a fair characterization. Yes.
And so I guess, Bob, I guess for me, Daryl, I share your concern because the well's been unprotected for an extended period.
Right,
And
I'm just concerned if there's construction going
Yeah.
on. So I guess my
Yeah.
question would be, at
Can we
what
do that at the
point
front?
after the heavy equipment comes on site
Well, so I
would
guess,
that take place?
you know, Bob, are you comfortable saying your intentions to do that at the start of site preparation when heavy equipment's on site?
Yeah, as I said to you, Matt, by the way, I would say that I think we're drifting off the agenda item for tonight, but I will answer the question. And that is, as I said to you, and I'll say to the full board, once we start working and we have a building permit that's not in appeal, as you know, several building permits have been appealed. As soon as we start working, we will get that done. It's just we have to take that fill, the temporary fill out before we can put the protection in, and we have to have big equipment on site. And yes, I'll commit to doing that right at the very beginning. And as a practical matter, Daryl, once we actually do that, we're not going to work from that side. I'm going to fence off so that driveway will, the only people using the driveway will be the tenants up at the house above. We're gonna do the construction from the other side, which is much better for everyone.
And so I would say I'm eager to get it protected. I think for me that feels sufficient, but would sort of welcome further discussion. I guess I can't figure out if we make if that is in fact the circumstance. Bob couldn't proceed with that circumstance if he doesn't have an approved building permit. So I don't see a way that we can make the release or the approval of the building permit conditional to that step, because in order to do that step, he would need to have a building permit.
Yeah, I also sort of, I share the concern and really want the well protected, and sort of wish we had addressed that with the well permit. I don't feel comfortable sort of tacking it on here, and it doesn't really, I agree, it doesn't make sense. Like we need to be sort of reasonable and practical.
I don't think
Well,
it's
I
that
mean,
inconvenient to review the plans again at the right time when we have a final plan. Why don't we wait
Well,
until we have a plan and review it?
Rebecca,
rather than trying to push it through.
I mean, I think, Rebecca, I hear what you're saying. I think we have given Mark guidance on many occasions for plans to say, if it matches with what we're looking at, go ahead. And Mark is able to approve plans that clearly meet the criteria without the approval of the board. So I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's appropriate in this setting, I think that we can apply the condition. If there's substantial changes, we can give Mark guidance to bring it back to us. But if it looks like this and has just been updated, but with this, kind of comparable dimensions and layout, that's
So-
just
so
not
maybe-
consistent with how we do it.
Maybe the thing to do is we vote to authorize Mark to approve the plans once the non-review sets are received.
I think so.
I agree with that. Mark is thorough and
Yeah,
he understands the issues fully, so.
So do I have a motion to approve so I guess what we're approving is the room count and the treatment of the basement room. Because I'm not looking at,
Are we really doing that, or are we making a motion for Mark to approve the plans once they're finalized, consistent?
I like that.
completely consistent with
Yeah,
the
I think-
plans
I
that
think-
we discussed tonight.
I
Yeah,
like
I think
that.
that's the better move.
Lisa, can you say that as a motion, and then can somebody second it?
Can someone make a motion that we authorize Mark to review and approve the final plans, assuming that they are completely consistent with this preliminary set that we discussed and reviewed at the meeting tonight?
So moved.
Second? Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Becca Honeywell, nay.
Matt Vitale, aye. Perfect. And then let me just get to our next set of subterranean toilets. Actually, this one is not subterranean. So next I have 29 Prospect Street in the order. And then, Mark, you and I had discussed this one a little bit. I want to make sure I understand it. And then I think while we have lots of building plans for the primary house, I think it's actually the existing house that becomes the issue. Is that right?
That is correct. The applicant has provided the Board of Health plans for an approved septic system for a 4-bedroom house, which were approved. He is presently going to be drilling a well and proving potability of the water. So, but in the meantime, he wanted to make sure his building plans were reviewed. He's actually asking just for foundationally, and obviously that's at his own risk. But he did submit this plan you're showing on the screen. And that is the old house that presently is being occupied as I believe, a 1-bedroom house that exists on this property. And he wishes now to, at 29 Prospect Street. He and I spoke when we were out there doing the well pump
You're
test.
breaking up, Mark.
And I'm hoping yeah, I know it says, can you hear me now?
Not really.
I'm sorry, if you can't hear me.
Maybe Mark,
No,
can you-
I may have to go by phone. I apologize.
yeah, maybe Mark, if you can go on mute on your speakers and then call in speakers and mic and call in by phone, then we'll bring you in. And then I think
I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
No,
Matt,
not too well.
Okay, let me go to my phone. 1 second.
and I see Stuart and Ian Bridgman. So we're just going to talk about a little bit, and then we'll sort of tap into you guys as we have questions and we look at the plans. But we'll have sort of that initial discussion by the board.
Great, thank you.
I'll give Mark just a second to join us.
Yeah, I'm still trying. If you can hear me while I get to the phone side of it, I'd be glad to talk.
Let's give it a
So-
shot, and I will interrupt you if it still sounds like you're fighting a robot.
Okay, thank you, and I apologize. So the original house, their wish is to remove the stove, which is right where you were, Matt, right in that area there. That's the kitchenette. And keep the 3/4 bathroom, and then open up the other side of the room. I guess they're tearing down a wall because it's the bedroom in there, and make that a library / formal living area, but it'll be wide open. And then from there, you go through the hallway on the top right to the other section of the house, I believe. And Stuart, feel free to correct me. You know this better than I, but that's the plan at this time. And my question was, could this be considered the 3/4 bathroom within the area? Part of this living room is a bedroom. So it's kind of like the same theme we've been going through tonight. So that's where I stand with this. If you heard everything I said.
Yep.
And
And just to clarify, Mark, the furnace room is going to have be the laundry room as well.
Okay, that's fine. A laundry room's okay, you know, if you have the plumbing. Thank you for that, though.
And then does the mudroom so it sounds like there are 2 points that we can enter. The kind of envelope for this portion, we can enter the rest of the new construction house that will be present. And then we can also enter at the bottom left of this plan from outside. Am I interpreting that right?
There's also on the screened-in porch, there's a door.
Okay.
On the right-hand side there. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll sort of open this part with discussion by the board and kind of initial thoughts and impressions. You know, so for me, this one felt hard because again, the presence of the closet to me doesn't change that the sort of formal living room library feels like a single space to me. You know, just because feels a little bit different in terms of the entry structure that we talked about. I feel some ambivalence about it. You know, again, I think all the reasons that the question is important are still important for this one and will be important for the one we discussed for Nason Hill as well. But it becomes a question of, you know, is this space that it is opening into part of a room here? If the closet wasn't present, I think the answer would be absolutely. With the closet present, I think it raises some questions, but it's that same sort of challenge of like, you know, if this is like a 10-foot opening or a 6-foot opening, is that sufficiently separate to not be an extension of that formal living room and library? But again, this is one I struggled with and would welcome others' thoughts.
And just a point of information, I am live now, both by phone and by the computer. I'll try to keep my phone away so you won't have but I'll be able to get right in on the phone if this doesn't work.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Mark. So how are other folks thinking about this?
Right, I guess I wish I could see it connected to whatever the new part is going to be.
Yeah,
because It
yeah.
almost looks like
Yeah.
a nice, really nice guest suite at some point.
So I think
That's what I'm not sure about.
So
Yeah,
I think
for me
that-
too, I had a hard time understanding the relationship between this and the rest of the house.
Yeah, me too.
So I think Ian or Stuart, is this the section?
Yes,
Or
that is correct. And actually, unfortunately, the photo on the front page here is a little bit old. If you scroll down to the actual plan further down, this one right here, you'll see there's more doors going outside through this entranceway. So the new front door is going to be right in the entranceway in between those, and then this hallway here is the connector.
This connector then goes to that kind of pod that we see.
Correct. Yeah, it's just under 5 feet wide. There's not going to be a door on there or anything like that. What we are sort of trying to do is keep the aesthetics of the old cottage included into the current house, so that we still use it versus it just sort of being a room that isn't going to be used, and it's going to be used as a formal living room, and then also an access way to the laundry room at the end of the house there.
So is that a
Yeah.
breezeway or, I mean,
It's sort of an entranceway with windows on either side. That's just a way of, we're struggling so hard to keep the old house and connect it into the new house. And the only way we could really figure out to make it flow would be to have an entranceway like this that linked them together.
So I like the concept, but the presence of a shower just to me begs it to be used as a bedroom or as a studio.
I guess, Stuart, can you help us? So for me, if this were a half bath, I'm totally comfortable. With a 3/4 bath,
Me too.
I struggle, again, just how much is this the same or different? And in this case, we certainly have access to the outside, but as we compare it to 53 Farm, there's a real clear traffic pattern that went through there, where this does sort of feel like an adjunct. And then if I think about like, why do I need a why do I need a shower in a sort of touching a formal living room? That feels strange. And so I guess, is there any way this can be a half bath?
Yeah, no, I think, our plan was trying to keep the, there's three of us living in this way it's been living right now. And we're trying to keep it as original as we can. And our goal is to still, we want to have access to the screen porch. The new house doesn't have a screened-in porch. And I think that's, one of the highlights of this property. And with the laundry going in there, it's going to be used quite regularly as a walkway to connect everything together in the house and make it flow would be sort of my argument for it. The showers there currently, if possible, I would like to keep it.
Right, so
Yeah.
but for us, we're always looking at how a building could be used by anybody else who comes along at some other point, separate from how you're planning to use it. And that's the part where that shower just makes it very inviting for a different use for somebody else potentially.
I agree. I don't think I can get around that either. I think I would need to see that converted to a half bath.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, the difference for me, which I think Matt stated briefly with the last one we looked at, was that there, the only access from the garage into the house was through that pathway, right? Here, this is no longer the main entrance into the house. And so this really becomes a separate private room. And so the 3/4 bath, I think, makes this a bedroom. If this stays the same and the shower goes away, then I'm fine with it.
Can I ask one other scenario question, just again, recognizing Stuart's priorities, but just to sort of think about what other pieces might look like? Am I still sufficiently visible?
Yep.
Yeah.
If this space functioned more like a hallway, so for example, if there was, this was, closed in some fashion, like I think, we're going to look at Nason Hill later, and that sort of has a kind of both an entryway feature and a little bit more closed structure. To me, if this is a hallway in a closed space and you have this kind of large space separate from it, again, I don't like it, but I think it meets the rules.
Yeah, and if I may add, Matt, right where you're located, I think that's the kitchen right now. And I believe the interest is just to remove the stove. This refrigerator and sinks will stay there.
Okay. Okay, and so then that would make it so that turning that into a hallway at all is tricky.
It would still be possible because it is such a nook in that current house. We could easily put a French doors across the front there if needed.
And so again, I want to be explicit. Like, I think all the concerns we've raised about the space are 100% valid, and I think speak to something we need to think about and potentially address with regulatory language. But with our current piece, if this is a hallway that connects to the laundry room and to a bathroom, it feels compliant, even if it's not. Like, I think it's compliant with our regulations as they're written. I would be much happier with it as a half bath. But what is the response of others to that hallway question?
So it sounds like it would be a kitchen and a hallway, maybe. And does that work with the room count, just so that we're not spending a lot of time on this if having a kitchen there bumps up the room count to something that's a problem?
It wouldn't be a kitchen. It would be the current sinks there. So just instead of having to replumb the whole place, I would leave the sink there. The stove would be removed and everything.
And it's sort of like
okay.
it's sort of then like here's a sink next to a mudroom.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with a refrigerator, right?
There can be a fridge there. If no fridge can be there, don't need a fridge there.
Yeah, I mean, the less you make this feel like it could be a rental guest cottage, the better.
Well, or sort of put another way, like it's been a home for many years, and so kind of magically saying that the same floor plan is no longer at all home-like is, I think, the tension you're hearing us navigate.
I completely agree with that. Does it make a difference that the hallway connecting it's not going to have a door or anything? It's going to be an open walkway.
What I would say is, for me, the kind of entrance to the addition doesn't change those pieces. It's really, in thinking about, if I sort of came to this de novo and was doing just a straight room count, I'd say this is one room. And for me, I would my sort of gut check is like, this is a room with a weird little closet appendage going into it, but that this was one room. And if I were counting it, I wouldn't say, oh, these are 2 rooms, and this is a room and an entryway. I'd be like, okay, I've got a room here, screen porch is in condition. I've got 1 room, and this is part of that room. And, you know, for me, that's attention, and the half bath doesn't. I think a hallway without a fridge and with things that do everything possible to make clear and sort of help represent the changes in the use of the space from its current use as a residence to a new use that is different and modified. And so I remain deeply ambivalent about even making it a hallway. Like I like half bath much better, but the regulations are what I have to follow. And being ambivalent or not doesn't change what they say.
Matt, if I can just add a point. This is a 5-acre lot, and Stuart, I forgot to mention this to you, it just came to mind. You met all new construction requirements for the 4-bedroom house that you're proposing. You could have your engineer redesign the septic system for 5 bedrooms, since you have up to 5 acres there plus. So just another side thought I just had.
Oh, and that way you could have
You
everything
can do
you
whatever
want.
you wanted there.
Is that something that, you know, at this point, we are a growing family and need the space, and, you know, we're not looking to have any more than four bedrooms in the property? Is that something where down the road, if I wanted to, you know, do that, I can revisit at that point?
Yes, you could, as long as your septic system is in compliance at that time. Yes, you could.
And the regulations don't change in between that.
That's a
In
good
some way.
point. The one thing you may have to do, I can tell you right off the bat, is you would have to add to your leaching area, but you would also have to increase your tank size.
So I think I know we've got a couple more properties to talk about. Where are people landing on this?
I think I pretty much feel the same as you. I'd feel so much better with a half bath, then it'd be a lot less complex, a lot less gray area. Sometimes things get too cute. Putting doors here, and I don't know.
And so Daryl,
But I do agree with you also that if it's off the hall and not connected directly to the room, that it satisfies our regs.
okay. And so it sounds like don't love the hall solution, but may meet the regulation. I think we need to see it and to think about it, and not just in the abstract to sort of say, what does this look like? What does that plan look like? So I think this is different than farmer. I'd want to see it before I said, yep, copacetic.
Yeah, I agree.
Lisa, where are you at?
Trying to eat a little dinner, sorry. Yeah, I agree with both of you, though. I think this would be much less of a concern if it was not a full bath.
Okay.
If it didn't have a shower, it would really alleviate that. And I can tell you that we've had people in town have just this, similar type layouts that they are using as either like a guest house or like in-law apartment. And so this one feels like it could easily be used that way. So
Yeah, I mean, I think of the ones we have tonight, I think that thinking about how to handle the 53 farm openings felt tricky. This is the one that feels the hardest in terms of the patterns of use issues. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I sort of agree with everything that's been said. I don't know that I have anything additional to add.
Okay. And Rebecca, anything else to add or kind of edit?
No, I just feel the same way, and I think it's similar to the last case.
Okay. And so,
I'd like to mention one other thing for the homeowners. You might just, if you're at all interested in the addition, is check with the engineer about what it means to add on now, because the cost could be quite marginal.
Yes.
A lot of the cost is just the design up front, the mobilization, bringing equipment on, digging things and adding a little
will
bit more to a line may not be quite the cost that you might have in mind. I can't say that for sure.
Well,
I don't know the circumstances.
Yeah, so maybe not like a money back guarantee, but like installing it now means that you're installing a somewhat different footprint with the heavy equipment that's already on site versus having a future cycle of testing, engineering, heavy equipment on site. Again, like we did our system 2 years ago, like tearing up your lawn, reseeding your grass, like at least understanding the parameters of what's possible and what those costs are, or a ballpark, maybe really good time spent now, whether you decide to do it or not, just so you know.
I
Very
appreciate that.
good
Thank you. And so if we just said that we would take out the shower, would that solve?
Totally,
the-
then we're totally
Totally
square.
solved it.
Yep.
Or
Okay,
why
so
not just keep the shower and just upgrade your septic? Because then you
I mean,
have so much freedom and flexibility in the future.
But it meets the regs if they would do that, and
Yeah.
then it becomes their choice.
But I think that was Ian asking, for, at least for me, I have not done the room count on the primary property, make sure there's no surprises there. Assuming that there's not, my only concern with the plan is this being 3/4. If it's a half bath, I'm square.
And similarly, so I think to summarize, our options are make that a half bath. The easiest options seem to be make that a half bath or increase the size of the septic. And then there's sort of no question. Anything beyond that becomes more complicated, and I think we need to see plans. Does that sound reasonable?
I think that's.
yeah, I think from when speaking with the engineers when we were designing it, I think that there was an issue with making the leaching field a little bit bigger. So that's why we did the 4-bedroom. So I'm, if we can approve it with the half bath, I'm happy to take out the shower.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Mark, I didn't see issues with room count, but I was really paying attention to this section.
Yeah, no, there's no problem with the room count per se. It's because his first floor on the main new house doesn't have, I think he has 3 or 4 rooms, kitchen, living room,
Yeah.
dining room.
I mean,
think
it looked good to me.
don't-
Like, it didn't seem like a bonkers room count at all with the addition. And so, Mark, in terms of if they convert this to a half bath, do you still need guidance from the board to approve it, or is it then just clearly compliant, no issue?
I can approve it if it's a half bath, once we get
Okay.
the potability of the water, but the foundation at his own risk has already been issued. It's just when it comes time for the building application for the entire house, it would need to be rectified to the half bath if that's their
Okay.
choice.
Ian, does that okay, make sense?
Yeah, no, that works for me.
Okay, perfect. All
I
right.
appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
All right, have a good night. I think I saw, did I see Kevin Reese on here?
Do you want to
That's-
make a motion to authorize Mark to approve that conditional to change plan?
What, but I guess, do we need, if it's totally approvable, does Mark need the approval of the board, or can he just do it? I'm happy to do either.
He can just do it, but since you've discussed it
Okay,
and you provide the,
so do I have a motion to approve the plans with the conversion of the existing 3/4 bathroom in the existing structure to a half bathroom? Assuming no changes in room count.
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell abstain.
Matt Vitale, aye. All right, we will continue the great bathroom saga of July 2022 with the basement of 22 Mason Hill. I feel like we're old pros at the full bathroom. So in this case, we've got stairwell coming down. We've got hallway that looks to be a clear hallway opening onto a bathroom. At least for me, assuming there's no room count issues elsewhere in the house.
Hi, this is Kevin. I didn't know
hi.
if you wanted me to say anything, and Pasquale, our builder, is also here available for questions.
Perfect. What was the name of your builder? Kevin, I didn't totally catch the name, but we will sort of tap in as we have questions. Again, kind of going into this and going back to 7.1, it seems clear full bathroom is opening to a hallway, which is accessible by stairs. We then abut the sort of space that we abut is a wet bar. Wet bar is not a kitchen. Our regulation also says if a full bathroom is attached to a kitchen, it doesn't apply. And so to me, again, all the same things we've talked about, but this doesn't, the room that this directly opens to is a hall, which is clearly a hall.
Yeah, I think the concern I was bringing to the board, Matt, if I can, is just that if a door was to go into the stairwell, going into the finished living space slash wet bar, then you get its own little room in there,
Yeah.
basically. And it's
No,
down
no,
at the-
I think all these are really appropriate to bring to us because I think they all raise questions we want to sort of think about, and particularly as we have a couple together and make sure we're thinking about it consistently across properties. Absolutely happy to discuss it. And so at least in looking at the building plans, it was a little confusing to me at first, but the building plans do describe this as adding a full bathroom in the basement. I take that as there's sort of a water closet section and a shower section. But again, treating that as a full bathroom with what we've discussed.
That is correct.
You know, I do think, yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
So is there a door at the top of the stairs?
Yes, there is.
Okay. This starts to look like 59 North Main to me. It's more like a suite.
So I guess
It's very private and it has walkout access, it looks like.
So I guess so I think that's a super valid concern. I think the struggle for me is if I look at 7.1, what it says is, you know, a room that opens directly into a bathroom, and to be counted as a room, it has to be a habitable space. And
Yeah.
for the hall, does it meet any of the square footage requirements to be a habitable space? I mean, like, I think you're concerned.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yep. Kevin,
Hi.
we're going to discuss it and we'll sort of tap into as we have questions, but we'll sort of be discussing, we'll recognize you kind of to pass the baton.
And
Right.
if you could mute while you're not talking, everybody, because I'm getting a lot of background noise. Thanks.
Yeah, I just, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble, and I just want to let you know that Pasquale from the Henry Company is here also. He's our builder, and he would be able to answer your questions probably better than me.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kevin. Somebody who wasn't me was going to say something, and I'm going to go on mute.
No, hello. I just wanted to introduce myself as the contractor for Kevin and Kate Reese. I'm here for any, I just overheard you guys. I'm here for any questions to be answered.
Sounds good. So Daryl, I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. I guess, let me just confirm, those doors are out to ground level or not?
The doors at the bottom highlighted in blue.
Yep, there.
Yeah, that would be a sliding door going to subterranean level. And stairs is almost like a bulk entrance, a walkout.
Okay.
So we're sort of walking uphill there, a bulkhead at the top.
That's the existing bulkhead. This set of this sliding door was just another egress or exit to the backyard.
It sounds
the
like the
stairs
backyard
here-
isn't level there. You have to go up those stairs to get to ground level. Is that?
That's
what you
correct.
said?
That's correct.
And is that, so is the playroom, is that a door opening to the sort of living, whatever, you know, hangout room, and then there's another door to an unfinished space?
No, so the only door is actually at the top of the stairs going from the first level into the basement. So let's say you were standing over the hall in the middle of the picture on the first floor, you'd be walking down to your right and there'd be no door entering the playroom.
But is the playroom connected? The playroom's in the basement, right? That's, or is it not?
That's what it is. That's what we're applying for, is to finish the space here.
To finish the space where the wet bar and playroom are, or the unfinished space? Now I'm confused.
Okay, is there a way I can upload on my end to maybe give some clarification of what's existing?
Sure, I think so. I will stop sharing and let's see if you're able to share. And
Okay.
Daryl, I see your hand up. Or no, Pasquale, I think that's your hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get in
No.
earlier.
No worries. All right, and Okay, perfect.
Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
We are, you're a little bit choppy, so let's see how that holds up. And it just right now is saying
Okay,
that you're sharing your screen. Perfect.
all right. As of right now, this is the existing layout, 2016. And simply just the basement was left with just mechanicals, as you see there at the bottom's a water heater, a furnace, and the electrical panel in the corner. It's just a slab and concrete walls with no framing.
And the arrow means that's.
That would be going
you're
up the
s-
stairs.
Okay, so you're stepping onto the stairs and then going up to the right.
Yes, correct. On the left side of the screen where the arrow's starting, that's where you would start. That's where the landing
Okay.
would be for getting up the stairs.
All right, unfortunately, that affects my perception of that hall that only leads to a bathroom and a closet. Sort of isn't a hall.
Okay,
At
so-
first, I thought it was at the base of the stairs, so you'd walk down the stairs and right to a bathroom.
Oh, I understand. No, it's
Yeah.
not the case. So that essentially, if you're walking up the stairs, you would end up above that previous screen you had there. What I can do is go to this, which you guys were looking at. So what you were looking at was a 180 version of this.
Yeah.
For some reason, the two are flipped to each other. But
Yeah, we can't hear you. You're totally breaking up.
So
it would
why don't we
be
do
an
this?
added bathroom, a full bathroom, a little wet bar area with a fridge, and that hallway. Oh, can you hear it?
You're kind of cutting in and out. Why don't we do this?
Yeah.
Why don't we have you stop screen sharing and I can go back to sharing, since that's plans that I've got too. Does that work?
Does that, yeah? Can you hear me better?
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
definitely.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
Okay, and so we sort of have the inverse of what we looked at before. And so I just want to, so these are stairs that are coming from the stairway upstairs. This is a wall. The hallway structure is, I'm coming off wet bar into hall into here, but this section is a wall, not a stairwell. That's an upgoing staircase, but starting
Correct.
on the right-hand side.
Correct. As of right now, you could walk under that stairway. It's kind of like a floating staircase with just simple posts.
So you just go from the playroom, has access to the stairs going up.
Correct. Yep. There's no door. It's showing like a case opening, but doesn't need to be there. That hallway.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna
The
say, is that gonna, I mean, you have to be able to access your equipment, right? So I presume, right?
Right. So we're putting the door on the bottom left side of the stairs at the landing there. That door going into the mechanical room is simply to separate the space. That's also going to be a fire rated door as well.
Okay, so for me now, that little hall that leads to the bathroom doesn't lead anywhere else functionally.
Well, no, it
So
doesn't. The
it's-
only reason that hall was there was to, it's a byproduct of giving that bathroom a little bit more privacy from the playroom.
Yeah. Oh, I understand that. It just makes it harder for me to view it as not, it makes the bathroom more directly off the main room to me. So I'm wrestling with that at the moment.
Now, can I ask you, is there is there a criteria that we don't meet that led to this review? I'm a little embarrassed asking, but it was just a little bit of confusion because it kind of happened so quick.
So we have a regulation that says any room that leads directly to a bathroom is treated as a bedroom. And so really it's a question of, we kind of call this a hall, but it's not actually a hallway connecting anything. It's sort of like if we had a previous plan that was like, oh, this is the water closet, this is the bathroom, like, are those really separate? If this.
I agree 100%, and I won't try to live in the gray area. That hallway is a direct path to the bathroom. That closet you can't walk through into the other side. So I mean, essentially, yes.
And so I think that's what makes it sticky, because now if you sort of say that hallway isn't a hallway, it's really sort of there's a kind of space here that includes a section without a toilet, a section with a toilet, a section with a shower. Then it's sort of like, really then the opening is kind of here, and we're now opening into this kind of common space.
Yeah, no, I won't argue that the bathroom is directly part of the playroom, and you can consider the playroom a bedroom in terms of how I'm understanding Sherborn's guidelines or regulations on that. The reason why I was asking, wasn't exactly sure what led to the review. I believe we have our septic system is sized for 5 bedrooms, and the home currently has 4 bedrooms.
So can we
did
look
get
at the rest of it? Because that's always
That may
helpful.
make it way easier. All right.
Yeah, let's do that.
My apologies. I misunderstood that part. So I can walk us through there. So just to confirm that I'm looking at the right set of plans, we've got the Reese Home existing layout report. Is that the best thing for us to look at?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So for that, we've got, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms on this floor, on the first floor. And then I've got squares. And then on the second floor, I've got 5, 6, 7, 8 rooms here. And then in the basement, we've got
One, really. So if we could resolve where those bathrooms on the first floor are opening into, since there were no doors on that diagram.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry about
Maybe,
that.
maybe this is a moot point on.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to
When
wonder.
I received the request for room dimensions, it was just simply room dimensions. And I put this together on my own, in a way not to brag, but also in a way where I'm a little embarrassed. It's the that kitchen, dining room, and if you scroll down a hair, that playroom is essentially one room. The kitchen and dining room, there's no case opening, it's continuous. Going into the playroom, there's a case opening that's about 10 feet wide right there. That half
But that's
bathroom.
different function, right, Daryl and Matt? So like the
Yeah.
kitchen and dining can be one, but the playroom is a different function. So we would.
Well, the
count that.
playroom is really almost, I'd call it an extension of the kitchen. One.
Yeah, but it's different purpose. So.
But there's no way to lead, you can't walk.
Yeah,
out of
but
it
I
and
think
get
our
in.
point is that you don't cook in the playroom and you cook
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the kitchen, so we have to
Yeah.
call them 2 different rooms.
Yeah.
Right, I think in your regulations, it's anything bigger than an 8-foot case opening would be a continuance of a room.
Right, but the kitchen is a separate function, so it's always counted as a separate room.
I get it. Well, I
None
mean,
of this
the only
actually
thing-
matters because you're at 9
Right.
rooms.
Right.
And you have a 5-bedroom system. So the question here is, where does that bathroom open?
So
That one, yeah.
that bathroom opens from the living room, but the half bath opens from the hallway.
And is that bathroom, the 8x5, is that a full bath?
It's a 3/4 bath.
Yeah, so it's got a
so
shower.
so with the Sherborn reg, that would say this counts as a bedroom.
Right.
And then on the second floor, we've got, sorry.
You have 4 on the
It was 4,
second floor.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of at 5. And so unless we've got a 6, because the 4 count, yeah. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
So that's why the basement matters.
Yes, okay.
Yes, and I can confirm, I looked at the certificate of compliance. I believe it's 5. I thought I had a copy with me here. I do not, but if it's 5 and that's exact, then that's what it is.
I do have 5 on a form from you guys, and also
That's fine.
a Title V inspection in 2020.
Okay, so
Inspection
similar
report.
to, I don't know if you were here for the last discussion, but Is the 3/4 or full bath in the basement essential to you?
Well, really what it is a matter of, well, the reason for this addition from my friends Kevin and Kate here is their children are preteens. One, and it just gives some room for privacy and have friends over and a little bit more leisure and everything. The second reason, Kevin's best friend has a disorder that has to do with just not being able to go to the bathroom on the same floor as friends, and that was a reasoning for adding a full bathroom downstairs. The design in the basement bathroom can simply be changed where it's not a direct opening from the main room as well, which would make this whole I guess conversation a lot simpler in terms of design.
So I think what I'm hearing from folks is, in this case, since the hallway isn't kind of a hallway, we've got two rooms that have a 3/4 bath opening to them. And that's the part that's taking us from 4 to 6 and sort of the issue. So what I'm hearing from folks is we could sort of have one of those two rooms have a 3/4 bath. We probably can't have both. The things that would need to change that would be that there's like a true hallway there. But I think, I'm not sure that that's like, we put a door over that and now it's a hallway, because it's not, it's just going to a closet. It's not going to another room. It's not a point of transit.
It can be if I remove that closet to the mechanical room. And if I add a door there, that would fall into the definition of a true closet. Hallway. Sorry, hallway.
So for folks on the board, Pasquale, I think what you're describing is like if this was open and this was, instead of opening this way, you pass through here into the utility space. Is that what you're suggesting?
So it would make that a hallway, which would then it would cut out the fact that from the playroom to the bathroom, that hallway being, let's call it like a gray area on, it is technically a hallway, but because it leads, to your point, directly to the bathroom, it's almost a throwaway room, let's call it. But it's an easy fix. I can add a doorway at the beginning of the hall that separates the playroom from the hall, get rid of that closet on the backside, and now it's a second passage to the mechanical room. I hate to do it, but it seems that's what would have to happen in order to meet the wording in terms of regulations and descriptions,
Yeah. What's folks' reaction to that?
It's better, but right, again, we look at long term, it would be such a lovely au pair suite or something, but right, I guess that starts to meet the letter of the law, and it does beg the question now that there's so many approaches to this or little tweaks. We just need to think about it at some point.
Yeah.
So what if, yeah, I mean, I think we need to clarify this for sure, because as use patterns change, our definitions become more difficult. What if this was the only access to the utility space through that hallway? Then I think we would, if like that other door was eliminated, so Matt, if that door was eliminated and the only access to the utility space was via this hallway, then I think that would sort of probably satisfy everything, because now you basically, to get to the utility space, you have to pass through that other room.
That makes it a real hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that doable?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, it still meets the code as a hallway and criteria by me getting rid of that closet. It's just seems more functional to have.
But I think the problem we're saying is that the reason it seems more functional is that it effectively turns that hallway into not a hallway if you have a separate access.
Well, look, I mean, if that's what's going to get this done, yeah, I'll do that. But I mean, the hallway's a hallway, in terms of regulation. I mean, we can feel one way about it, but when I go to the code books, that's the rules that I think are set forth and we have to follow. I mean,
right. But I think what we're trying to follow is our own regulations about sort of defining whether you're attached in our precedents.
Is your regulation spell out that's not a hallway?
What our regulation says that if you're sort of directly attached to a room, then that's a bedroom. And what we're trying to do is get to a place where it's clear that that is not just sort of a thing that's been constructed for a technicality.
It would be, but it would, I'd be
Yeah.
meeting the criteria.
Yes,
You know,
and
so it's
unfortunately, that's what we're getting pushed to. Our goal is to make sure that septic systems are sized properly for the use. Now, I understand current owners may have a vision for use, but in the future, someone else is going to view this as the perfect place for in-laws or something else because it's got everything it needs for a self-contained living. So I understand your point. That's why we've been wrestling with this for a long time and multiple times this evening, but so that's.
I do want you guys to know, you know, I've been building a long time. I have a great reputation as a builder. You know, sometimes I live in gray areas in terms of design and whatnot, but I know a lot about septic, a lot more than your average builder. I'm also somebody that does utilities. I understand why all this that we go through, all these meetings tonight, they're pretty much revolving around septic, why they're so important. People don't understand, you know, the health issues of feces and things kind of going into our streams and water. I do want to add, if this holds any merit, this is a 3.5 acre property. I did take a gander at the original percolation test for the design, and basically what was done by the engineer was they did the bare minimum and were able to get 5-bedroom septic out of the deal, and that's what they put here. But due to the nitrogen levels in the soil, I mean, you wouldn't go for more than 5 bedrooms in a design like this. That it seems that wasn't the case, but there could have been more. So
I think this is a can of worms we don't want to open.
Those things are kind of a pointless part of what I'm getting at here. But you know, it does come down to sometimes is, you're right. I agree. Somebody could use this absolutely as a ensuite or a weekend getaway for grandparents to come over and things like that. And we know that these regulations are kind of there to stipulate all that. But at the end of the day, the point I'm trying to make respectfully is, you know, if you guys set forth rules, they're on paper, they're on the internet. I have to go through them, read, do all my due diligence. You know, it comes down to black and white in terms of, I can leave that existing door coming down the stairs and add another door here at the beginning of the hallway in between the playroom and this hallway and get rid of that closet. I meet the criteria regardless of what it could possibly be used for in 10 years. You know, in the other token, you know, a lot of septic rules are kind of redundant. You can get rid of half the bedrooms in the house and just keep adding bathrooms everywhere, because these septic systems are based on bedroom count. You know, there could be a grandmother that comes and does laundry all day.
Again,
Let's
it's almost
stay
9
focused
o'clock
on
and we have a ton of stuff to talk about. I'd like to just, you know, I think it sounds like the only question that remains is, one, I think similar to what we talked about with the earlier one, we'll probably need to see what the revision looks like to have it pass the gut check. Conceptually, you know, to kind of go through and kind of straw poll people. You know, I think I sort of hear Pasquale's point in terms of, you know, I want to leave that door open because it makes it much more useful. I also hear Matt's point of, if you leave that door open, then it's sort of, there's a trivial hole in the wall, and you know, does that make it a hallway? I think for me, I sort of land on, it's a hallway. Like, if we want a different rule, we need to make a different rule. And if it's a hallway, even if it's a superfluous or duplicate hallway, that's not a standard we apply. I don't like it. I think it passes. I would feel much better, and it would be more obviously path if it was more clearly a true hallway. And, you know, it's sort of, how do I be consistent? So for me, I think if the closet was gone and that was a true hallway, I think, again, it meets the letter of the regulation. For me, I don't feel like we have to close the door, but I'm not sure I'm right. Maybe we can go through, Daryl, where are you at? We'll just go through alphabetically with people sharing their thoughts, and then we'll kind of arrive at a conclusion, move to the next topic.
I fully get the letter of the law issue. I don't think we have to debate that. We spend a lot of time trying to work on this. It's also impossible to lay out every permutation that people come up with. So I absolutely would feel far better if there was not the door at the base of the stairs leading into the utility room.
Do
Much
you mind if
better
I
about
hate
it.
to- I'm sorry. to
I
interrupt.
understand your
But-
point.
Pasquale-
I
No,
understand
no,
your
no,
point.
I'd like,
Pasquale, you don't have the floor right now. Like you're,
Yeah, we're debating.
you're here. We're going to talk about it at the board. We will pass the baton to you sort of when we're through, but the board's going to continue uninterrupted.
Right, and I think that the language about hallway was because we were usually looking at things that were upstairs in houses. That's where it originated. Didn't envision everybody building out basements, and so hallways upstairs tend to be running between kitchen, dining room, living room. So yes, didn't anticipate this. So
Matt?
to make it a true function as a real hallway, to me, it would need to be the only entry point into the utility room.
Okay. Matt, where are you at?
I mean, I sort of agree that technically it then becomes a hallway. It's not a technicality I'm comfortable with, but I'm not sure our rules avoid it.
Okay. Lisa, what's your reaction?
Anyway, we could get rid of the shower or the bath.
Yeah.
That would be like the slam dunk to this whole discussion, because I feel like we are dancing around the edges of a kind of ambiguous notion of a hallway. But I'm gonna I have to think about it more.
Okay.
Yeah. We also
Um,
haven't asked whether the bathroom off the living room could lose its shower or bathtub, whatever is in it.
And then Rebecca, what are your reactions?
I think there would be a lot of value if we as a board approach things thinking about the intent of the law and not just relying on the letter of the law, because I think that's a little bit what we're supposed to be trying to do.
Okay. So I'm not hearing from people, yep, I'm ready to vote yes on this. And it sounds like the sort of three scenarios for the applicant to consider and then reconnect with Mark. One would be to illuminate the 3/4 bath on the ground floor connecting to the living room. One would be to illuminate the shower in the basement. One would be to have a single hallway point of access. It's not clear that that's a requirement. It's certainly clear that the board's more comfortable with that. And, I think as a next step, it's probably for them to kind of consider those options and figure out how they'd like to move forward. I'm not hearing that people are ready to vote on a conditional plan right now without either seeing it or, kind of having Mark look at it and not having issued. Does that accurately reflect the state of mind?
Yes.
Can I upload that plan?
What was that?
Can I upload that updated plan?
Not right now. You certainly can follow up with Mark.
I mean, I have it ready on my screen, and that's what you wanted to see.
Again, like I think that right now, like I actually am not sure that you're going to get to 5 votes for yes if you just take out the closet and do the hallway. So I would recommend you not do it that way, and that you guys circle back and discuss. I didn't hear 3. Yep, I'm at yes. And so again, like
I mean, we've waited 3 months from since we submitted for the.
Yeah, Pasquale, I'm sorry, I have to step in. This is Kevin, the homeowner, and I first I just want to say I respect and I appreciate, and as a resident, I'm glad to know, because I don't tune into these things, that you guys take this much consideration for everything. But we on our side have also been trying to be very considerate, and I didn't bother chiming in to tell you that this is literally never going to be, as far as I know, an in-law suite. And I think it might be a little bit unfair that because it could possibly be that in the future, that you think the intent of the law now is to prevent that. But really, we have been waiting for a very long time for this town to reply to us and to finally, after all these months, get some time. It just doesn't seem right that we kind of get pushed off and shoved off for something that it kind of seems like if you guys needed to, you would have to abide by your rules and say that it's okay. And I don't mean to be rude by that. This is my very first time ever having to deal with this. It's very important to me and my family. I was completely right about my kids, and also my friend Evan,
we totally don't need to know about anybody's bathroom situation, because again, like,
okay, you're right. It's on.
I mean, this is a recording meeting.
I come to you guys in earnest in all good
No,
faith.
but I
You guys
just
are
want to
doing-
say, like, don't include people's medical stuff, because this is both recorded on YouTube, on minutes. Like, we don't need that level of personal detail, and I prefer not to have.
I'm sorry about that. Yep.
No,
I
no,
understand.
like, I'm actually trying to think about you guys. What I would say is, I think that, and again, just to represent the position of the board, the sort of concerns that we raised with the plans as they exist were ones that Pasquale said, yep, that's an issue. And so I think that's part of what we're dealing with. I think the other thing I would say is, like, I'm not sure if you're here at the start, but the first thing we started with is that there was a series of changes made to property that brings it out of compliance. And so I totally hear what you're saying, but we're dealing with 50-year-old, 40-year-old septic systems. You can't tell me what's going to happen over the life of the property. You can certainly tell me your plans, and those are really important too. But I think that's where we have to be consistent. I think that again, in terms of Pasquale, what you're bringing up, if like, I think I did hear 3 or more yeses if that doorway is closed and the closet's gone and there's a doorway to the utility room. I don't know if that's a place you can arrive at now. If
I
you
have
can,
it's changed. I have the ability to show you whether you take it into account tonight or not. It helps give a visual to the topic at hand.
So can I just?
It's literally available on my screen. It's
No,
exactly as if
but,
you wanted it.
Just to kind of clear the board, if the plan is closing off that downstairs, the doorway here, removing the closet and making a pathway here, I felt like I heard at least 3 people who felt like that was consistent. While we may be not enthusiastic for all the reasons we described, but we felt like that was a true hallway. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Pasquale, is that the plan you're going to put up?
It's exactly what I'm going to put up.
All
Exactly. as
right,
described.
let me stop sharing. All right, go ahead.
Is everyone still there?
Yep.
Yes.
That's
Okay. So that, to me, that looks like what was discussed. It looks like
I can road all.
No, I think we're good.
That's fine.
So for me, this, I just like a quick straw poll, and then we can take a vote. With all the caveats and limitations we've had, I think this reflects the recommendations that would make us more comfortable that that's a true hallway. So for me, I'd be at a yes. Can we go through alphabetically with kind of a straw poll for people to at least to get to 3?
Okay, Daryl. Yes, this is a big improvement.
Okay. And Matt, I think you were a yes with this change?
Yeah. I think this removes ambiguity.
Perfect. So with that, then can I make a motion? Mark, there were no other issues with the room count, correct?
That's correct, but there will be a need to get information on the ejector pump to make sure it meets Title V requirements. If this is the plan the board wishes to approve, just so the board knows, I responded to the applicant back in April.
I don't want to, I definitely recognize the applicant. I don't want to adjudicate sort of what timing or what happened, because it's 9 o'clock and we have plenty of business.
No problem.
I
If you
would
ever need,
echo,
I
I
have
think,
the full con-
Pasquale, can you just bring that up? We're totally not going to go back and forth on the building application. So if you want to just bring up the plan so that we can sort of have it on the screen as people vote.
I'm sorry.
If we can get the one you just had, that was, I think, updated.
Okay.
I mean, how could we not approve
This is it?
magic plan? Yep, beautiful.
Hey,
Do I have a,
do it.
go ahead.
No, I was joking about magic plan.
Fair enough. Well, we'll have Houdini over here next. So do I have a motion to approve the plan as edited and as displayed on the screen with the illumination of the closet, a direct access to the utility room, and the closure of the other point of entrance to the utility room, conditional upon receipt of further information about the ejector pump?
Wait, can I ask one question? I'm really sorry to bring this up. Should
Sure.
we also, in addition, require a deed recording?
I mean, I don't, if a deed
Or is it not
requirement.
necessary?
I don't think we need to, because
I
our
don't
total
think
room
it's
number is
necessary.
fine, and we've made
Okay,
this not a
okay.
bedroom.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yep.
So would your motion be to authorize Mark to approve it?
It would be.
Conditional to this plan being added to the building application?
Yeah.
Yes, so do I have a motion to guide Mark to approve it conditional to this plan being added to the building application and the additional detail for the ejector pump?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beavers, aye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell abstain.
Matt Vitale, aye. All right, guys, good luck with your project and have a good night.
Thank you. So
Thank you for all that you do.
the ejector information, I'll update. I know you guys have it, but I'll update it again to Mark, you're saying?
Yep, Mark Oram.
Please contact me to review the needed information. Thanks.
All right, and Pasquale, if you can stop sharing your screen so I can.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Absolutely. All right, and so I
Thank
think
you.
have a good night, guys. All right, so I think we are up to 24 Hollis Street, and I don't know, do we have Lori here?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. So Mark, if it's okay with you, I'm happy to sort of introduce the background as I understand it, and then maybe I can pass the baton to you.
That's fine, Matt.
Perfect.
And
And
we have
then,
two, others on this, the well plan and the Title V report.
perfect. And then Lori, I've got some of my information decidedly not firsthand. So if I misstate anything, I will sort of describe my understanding of the situation, but if I misunderstand it, I'm going to offer you a chance to reply to that before I pass the baton to Mark, okay?
Okay.
So in way of background, this is a property that is up for sale, and there was an application for replacement of the well. I think that the context for the Title V is I think there was a previous prospective buyer who had relayed that the septic system was reportedly been replaced and that it was not in compliance with the well distances. So that's how the kind of Title V and the well piece connect. We don't have existing plans for an installation. I think that's one of our questions from Ms. Woodward tonight, is just to understand in their time of ownership, kind of what's happened to the property and to understand how that kind of relates to the septic system as it currently exists. The reason that's salient is because if for some reason the septic system issues were out of compliance, we would need to figure out a way to rectify that prior to doing the well approval, because the property would be out of compliance. So that's some of the background, but again, some of my information is between second and third hand, and so maybe kind of incomplete or incorrect. So Lori, anything you have to add, and if not, then I'll pass on to Mark to kind of go over the Title V information.
Okay. We purchased the property about 30 years ago. We've maintained the system that existed with DL Atkinson every year pumping it with no issues. We decided that we thought we might try to sell the property. Our kids have moved on, and we thought we might try to do the same. And I consulted a Title V inspector who came and said, well, the well's too close. And we had a well permit in 2004 because I was very concerned about the septic system that was installed at 28 Hollis Street. So I decided not to go forward with replacing the well. But I knew that when we had the Title V inspector come, when we were thinking about selling, that it would probably have to be moved. So I hired an engineer who designed a well plan for me. I then consulted with a real estate person who said, that's fine, but why don't you hold off until we know who the buyer is going to be. We didn't know whether someone would just want, it's just a very modest little 3-bedroom home with some acreage, and we didn't know who the buyer was going to be. So I went with her recommendations, and I held off. 2,000 people reviewed this home, and well over hundreds went through this home. It was ridiculous. But the buyer wants the home as is. There was plenty of people that just couldn't figure out how the best way was to demolish it and put in, 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, whatever they wanted to do. I do have a buyer. I am closing on the 27th. I know that I need to replace the well, and that's where I went the day after I knew who the buyer was that wanted it just for this 3-bedroom little home, and put in my application, and that's where we're at now. I know Mark had suggested that we give the Title V ahead of that, which would be contingent on moving the well. The well is too close, which we knew, so that's why I went for the well application.
Lori, can I ask just one follow-up question, which I think you've implicitly said, but I just want to make sure I understand. So the system that you have in place was a system that was in place when you purchased the home in approximately 1990. Is that correct?
Yes.
And do you know when that system was installed, or you don't know when that was installed because you bought the house 30 years ago and that's a lifetime?
I do not know.
Okay. And
We
so
have just made sure that it's well taken care of, and we've never had any issues with it. So
perfect. And so, Mark, in terms of the Title V, I think that the Title V identified some issues with, so it was to be clear, as a passing Title V, it sounds like, at least when I was reading through it, it sounds like when the system was originally installed, it was done so on top of grade, which is not typical, but that doesn't.
It's not a passing Title V. It's marked as needs further evaluation by the local approving authority.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And I'm working off my phone right now. I'm having trouble again getting on.
Okay.
But that is correct, and it's based on the well, but in the Title V report, it does note that the leaching field had been installed above the top of the ground, which is not the typical it's not allowed basically in Title V. So that's another issue with the leaching field. So there's two issues going on. One is indeed the issue with the well being too close, and the second one is the actual soil absorption system being in that location that was mentioned above the topsoil, it says.
Well, so Mark, can I just ask a quick question? So do we have, does the Board of Health have the plans for that, whatever 30-year-old septic? Do we have that information?
No, we have no plans on file, both at the Board of Health office and no plans on file at the building department, because sometimes we check their places too, their files.
And then Ellen had also, I asked Ellen to just check and see if we had any minutes on this property, because those go back fairly far as well. And if it's a mounted system, would typically have come before the board if after Title V, I think. And there's no records there. So, so in terms of the well permit portion,
I'm echoing, I apologize.
No worries. So I guess in terms of the local approving authority, it sounds like there's kind of two parts. And so I guess my question, Mark, is the proximity of the well the issue that triggers need for local review? And if it is, and that's the only issue that triggers local review, then I think that approving the well permit would resolve that. But am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I don't think you should get into that. That is correct.
Mark,
we can't hear you.
Mark, you're totally inaudible.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the phone if you can't hear. I'm back on the phone. I apologize
Perfect.
for these inconveniences.
Thanks so much, Mark. Mark,
Yeah.
for the Title V needs additional review, is that driven exclusively by the proximity to the well?
That is correct. Even
And
though
so-
the other issue was noted, it's not something that we can correct now. Whenever that happened, we don't know.
Okay. And so in this case, if we approve the well permit as requested, we've now resolved the outstanding issue that was, I think, raised by a previous buyer, and have resolved that there's sort of no septic system post Title V installation, since we're sort of going back to 1990.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, I have, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I think that was just feedback.
Yeah, I don't. I'm leaving the meeting on the computer. It just keeps coming in and out. But back to your question, Matt, we have no records of the septic. Might it be prior to 1990 or even prior to, or after that? So there's no records on it. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. And so in that case, it sounds like the kind of existing question that we needed to resolve prior to being able to approve the well permit, we've now resolved. Is there other discussion from the board, or do we feel comfortable moving forward to approve the well permit that will be in compliance with the SAS?
Yeah, and that's actually by approving the well permit, it will bring the Title V conditional approval into compliance once that well is approved and for potability and the old wells abandoned.
So quick question. So when the Title V inspector was doing the inspection, he was able to find everything he needs. So do we have like a high degree of certainty to the precise geographic location and extent of the existing septic, so that when we're doing the final approval for the plan for the well, we can all have confidence that indeed it's located where he said?
That's a good question, Lisa. That is correct. The engineer consulted to the Title V inspection to get accurate locations. According
And then
to
I think
Paul.
the Title V inspector also dug a hole near the leach line.
That is
as
correct.
well, and sort of also
And-
saw some of that kind of
And
morphology.
and the Title V inspection does show what the Title V inspector did is got all the ends of the septic system and dug a deep hole to the side of it to see. That's how he knew it was above the topsoil, but he did locate the leaching field and septic tank on the Title V inspection.
So we can translate this little sketch plan into like a quantifiable, approvable figure.
That's
I
what
think
they're,
so.
yeah, they're allowed to do that in that way. I know it doesn't look like an engineered plan, but that's how they allow them to do it.
And Mark, in this case, what's the setback that's required? It's 150.
Yes, being the well is uphill from, let me just double check. The well is uphill
That's-
from,
Yeah.
so
And
it's uphill
so,
from the existing SAS, so 150 feet, assuming the perk rate is less than 2. We're not for sure what the perk rate is there. We never tested the soil, but he gave the most conservative approach on this.
and Lori, the cart path, one of our, and again, this is just a small thing that I think is, oh, perfect. You're going to protect the bollards there
Yes, we've
to protect it from the cart path.
yeah, the well engineer came back and twice now and made sure that it was at least 5 feet off what someone considers a driveway, even though legally it's a cart path. But regardless, it is protected, and we can actually either move the driveway or we can add something to protect the well if someone was going to plow or drive. But it would be very well protected.
And so for that one, I think because it's less than 20 feet, so I suspect that would be a relatively substantial move. It'd either be bollards or boulders. But I think kind of whatever you guys landed on would be permissible. It's not totally clear to me on Paul's plan, just in terms, like it makes it, oh, I guess that's a radius. So as long as it's 5 with protection, then I think
it's kind of right at a corner. So the well engineer said, make sure it's a good 5 feet back. And there are a couple trees there, but we can add either boulders or some sort of a, concrete barrier, something. But it's not an area where the well is being placed is not an area where someone would actually drive. They would be either hitting a tree or running into a post.
So what I would say, just in terms of the board and thinking about our other properties, like to me, this is a cart path, not a driveway. I do think it makes sense to protect it. It is not obvious to me that this is a variance for the 20-foot setback since it's not actually the driveway.
Right.
Does that sound right to folks?
Could be. I mean, I have a dirt driveway at my property, so it depends on what the use is.
Okay.
So
I would
say they're still needed, the bollards.
Definitely needed. Okay. Mark, does the plan need to be updated I mean, here it says, with protective bollards installed within 5 feet.
Yes.
Is that sufficient?
Yes, it is. And this plan's been updated to review the comments I had about distances to,
Okay,
it was hard to tell distances to property line, to the drive, to the cart path or drive,
Okay.
whatever you wish to call it. But it has been updated to address the requirements that I asked for, including the location of the SAS has been confirmed by the Title V inspection.
okay. Is there any further discussion, or do we feel ready to move forward with a motion?
No, I'm glad that they were able to confirm that there was a system there and where it was.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Perfect. So if no further discussion, do I have a motion to approve the well permit conditional to the presence of protective bollards or boulders as described in the notes on the plan?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Honeywell, I.
Matt Vitale, aye. Lori, good luck with your closing.
Thank you very much.
Ellen, anything else we need to do with this one, or can we close this one out?
I'm not sure. Mark, do they need to do anything with the Title V?
Well, the Title V will have to wait for the well to be finally approved and the old well abandoned. So that will need to come back to the board once all that's done to confirm that the condition has been corrected.
So I guess, does that have any impact on the financing for closing?
Yeah, well, yeah, because until that's done, that condition still exists because the new well has not been installed and approved for potability, both at the well and at the tap, as well as the old well hasn't been abandoned yet. So that does all have to be done prior to this Title V inspection being
So if Ms.
compliant.
Woodward's closing in a week, is it appropriate for us to say, that we can give you guidance to resolve the outstanding Title V issue?
Yeah, we can talk to the banks and explain this will stay as a conditional Title V until the well situation's resolved with the, as noted, with the well approval and the old well abandoned. So yeah, we'd be glad to talk to anyone that has questions on that during the process, because we can't just change that until this condition's met.
Yeah,
Is it?
I think that the Downings, Michael Downing is purchasing my home, he and his wife, and I think they are working on the assumption that it's going to be okay with their financing to close on the 27th. They can change it if they have to. It's not a big deal to me. I would prefer, because I'm sitting here in an empty house with a fan here because I've basically moved out. But I think that they're okay, but I think it would be better that they knew I had the permit and Northeast is ready to go. I've kind of done everything except for dig the well myself. So I think we'll be okay. But if they have to change it, they have to change it. There's not much.
Or if you run
we can do
into
about
issues,
it.
just please reach out to the board and we can try to communicate
so.
where we're at.
And
Okay.
the well that's here, it functions and does perfect. I just never wanted to really change it until we had to, and now we have to. So I think we'll be okay, but I will let them know that.
Okay.
And then with this well permit, Mark, is this something I can get like right away, or how does that work? What is the process?
We may have lost
Hello?
Mark audio.
Mark, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
No, Mark, I just was asking if this is something I get right away, the well permit, so I can move forward with Northeast wells, or is this something that takes a little while?
No, it's been approved tonight. So the issue now will be is Northeast can call. I won't be able to process it until probably Monday, but I can let Northeast know if they wish to call that it was approved tonight by the Board of Health. There is a time period you may want to ask them, because to get your well approved for potability is they test at the well, and hopefully all those tests will come out fine. It's both quantity and quality. And then at the tap, they have to do another quality test, and hopefully nothing more than, hopefully all the tests come out right. And they can explain that to you. And then the old well has to be certified as abandoned. Once all that's complete, then the Title V will be brought back to the board for confirmation that that condition has been removed. And that will go on your file as well. So if anyone ever pulls your file, they'll see that condition was met.
Well,
Sounds
the
good.
Downing's file at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyone's welcome to call. There, it's a unique process, but it can take a few weeks to months. So if they're welcome to call with any questions.
Yeah, I'm sure they've already closed on their house and ready to move
Okay.
in, and so I think we'll be all set, but we'll figure it out as we go along. But I would like to obviously do as much upfront that I can. That's all.
Very good.
Okay, thank
Sounds
you.
good, Lori. Have a good night.
Okay, good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
All right, I am gonna go to the big T's. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Mark, do you want to outline the issue for 7 course book, please?
Yes, Matt, if you can. I'm having trouble getting to my Google Docs too, but we did receive a letter today from the engineer, well, the designer for the septic plan. The original septic plan was designed with a survey that was done, and according to the designer, the survey that they did originally for the septic plan had changed. Someone had went out on the land and changed it. So when they did a second survey, they found these issues when they provided that to conservation. Why it wasn't brought to our attention, I don't know, and I can't answer that. But they have now corrected the septic plan, which, by the way, these elevation discrepancies were discovered by the installer of the septic system, who was at the point of filling in the excavation with sewer gravel. So they're at that point. They're waiting to continue with the design. So the designer has submitted to us a plan showing the changes made, and they're mostly concerning the elevations, which actually reflect onto the depots, which reflect onto the groundwater, which reflects the setting of the soil absorption system. With that said, it has been updated and corrected by the designer and now ready for the Board of Health's review and approval.
And in this case, I think the fact that this is sort of a midstream issue adds some urgency in terms of having a large
Correct.
for an extended period.
Yes, indeed. We don't want to see these excavations open too long, and nor, have even the sewer gravel being affected by weather. So yes, indeed.
Any discussion by the board?
It sounds like you're ready to recommend approval though, Mark, for us?
That is correct, Al.
Okay. I'm okay with it.
I will say that the original plan had an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission, but the plan was sent to the Conservation Commission. And this afternoon, I received an email from Joyce Hastings, who's the, I guess, the interim agent. And she said that she did review the plan. She sent it to 2 members of the commission. And she sent me back an email saying that this email is an approval of the modified site plan with the grading change for the septic system. The Conservation Commission will issue a letter for the file after tomorrow's meeting. So she essentially issued an emergency approval. So this can be approved so it can continue.
Thank you, Ellen. That's a very important part I forgot to mention. Thank you.
Ellen, does that mean that we need to do anything conditional, or we can proceed with what we have from Joyce now?
I think you can proceed based
Okay.
on the emergency.
Yeah, that's the way I see it also. So it almost reminds me of a beaver permit. Usually they get ratified by the various commission or board, but the emergency approval is usually through the agents.
Well, hopefully we won't have beaver permit level controversy to the
Can you
following motion.
explain why it's an emergency again? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
There's
understand.
a giant, so one, it's that the plans have been updated, and 2, it's that there's an enormous hole in the backyard that presents a fall hazard. You can also have contamination of the sewer gravel if it's down for an extended period of time. Again, I'm not totally sure what falls out of the sky that's worse than my septic effluent, but I think those are the issues, because you don't want to get contaminated or intermingled with other materials improperly.
And Mark,
But
do
it
you think
meets
that
our original order of conditions.
We don't have an order of conditions. The Conservation Commission did, and it satisfied those, and they've communicated that it satisfies those. So I think we're just approving the plan with different numbers on the topography, but no substantive changes to the design of the system, its location, or its properties, other than where it is relative to the core of the earth.
And Mark, do you think that they would be working on this tomorrow? Or should we have a caveat that just says,
I was going to wait for the,
released?
yeah, I was going to
after
wait for the
con-
ratification. Yeah, I was going to wait probably for the ratification by conservation. I
Okay.
think one day will not hurt them. And I have a feeling the installer is going to have to bring his equipment back. He may want to know the status after tonight, and I will reach
Yeah.
out to him and the representative for the owner, saying that the board approved it, needs to be ratified by conservation tomorrow, commission tomorrow, and then after that, feel free to let me know when you're going to start back.
Okay,
So do I have a motion for a approval of the revised plan conditional to ratification of the previously communicated Conservation Commission decision?
okay. So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Highwell, abstain. I just don't know enough about it.
Matt Vitale, aye. All right, with that, we'll go to Big T's. And Mark, do you need anything else from us?
Not at this time. I'll wait if you want any interjection for the chair's business on the working sessions.
Perfect, okay. So now we'll go to Big T's temporary food establishment permit. Ellen, any concerns from Tom?
No, I spoke to him today. He recommends approval. This application came in a good while ago. He's spoken with the owner several times, and he does intend to inspect on Sunday.
Okay,
But he did recommend approval.
perfect. So do I have a motion to approve the temporary one-day food establishment permit?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Highwell, aye.
Matt Vitale, aye. I will go to the Fields at Sherborn Consumer Confidence Report. So this is again the same data we reviewed, I think, 2 meetings ago for the wells at Woodhaven, kind of as I understand it, a similar data set, different format and kind of appearance, but similar content. And it looked like kind of everything was within appropriate range. And this
Except
is-
for the gross alpha, but that's not as strict a standard.
Okay. And that's just an environmental condition.
Yeah, I'm present because of rain.
Granite, right?
Yep. Yep.
It's granite.
Usually.
Yeah. Unless there's a little
radioactive waste
Chernobyl
disposal.
thing. Yeah, we don't know about happening.
And that was sort of the only thing that stood out to me. Otherwise, it looked like everything else was in range. And I missed it. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it. I was agreeing with you that everything else is in range.
Perfect. So with that, so we had, I'll kind of go on to the minutes unless there's more discussion there, and then we'll transition to the working sessions, which will be public but closed to comment. So for the meeting minutes of June 15th, I think those have been edited. There was a community comment and Matt provided some additional review, and those edits are then reflected. Other than those, I didn't have any further edits. Does anybody else have any other comment or modification to the June 15th minutes?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the June 15th minutes as amended?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion?
Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Rebecca Highwell, aye.
Matt Vitale, aye. And then for the July 6 minutes, I had looked at those and they looked right to me. Rebecca, I think you'd submitted a set of edits, which Ellen passed along. In listening to or in watching the YouTube, it seems like the minutes as,
I only made one edit and that was to the meeting of the 6th. I didn't make any edits to the 15th.
no, I know, I'm talking about, we passed this, the 15th, and so now we're to the
Yeah.
6th. And so in looking at that, I thought that the minutes looked correct and aligned with my recollection. Ellen had passed on an edit that you made, which I think was speaking in the preamble to the discussion on the Farm Road parcel. I went back and watched the YouTube video. I think that Ellen's minutes had reflected, sort of that you stating that we had not received information about the drinking water supply. And then you had a follow-up comment that without that information, how could we make helpful comments? I think in the minute
Because we
revision,
don't have, the applicant hasn't provided that information yet.
yeah, so I think the minutes as Ellen wrote them is that the people lacking the information is the Board of Health, and that was one of the limitations in the available information.
Right.
And so I think that's how the minutes as Ellen circulated them were. It looked like your edits were saying, at least my read of the edits that you proposed was that it was saying that the applicant didn't have the information, which wouldn't make contextual sense. So it sounds like you also
No,
feel
no.
that the
The
people
applicant
lacking
didn't-
the information is the board.
No, all I said was that our board doesn't have the information because the applicant hasn't submitted it. I think it was just flipping the words.
Okay, so it sounds
I
like
think
we're
the
sort of-
minutes were well done and accurate.
Okay,
That one sentence, the applicant hadn't submitted it, so the Board of Health didn't have the information yet.
okay. Do you feel comfortable with the version of the minutes that reflects that the people lacking the information is the Board of Health?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Do I have a motion to approve did anybody else have any other edits to the July 6 minutes?
I think I had something tiny,
Okay,
a couple tiny items.
perfect. Do I have a motion to approve the July 6 minutes then?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Daryl, aye.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Rebecca Honeywell, aye.
Matt Vitale, aye. And I think that brings us to the working session. And so what I think, given the late hour, I want to be kind of prudent about how much time we spend on it. I thought what we could do is, I think Lisa's shared with me a red line version that I can pull up to discuss for the drinking water changes. And then we can briefly discuss the proposal that Matt and I had worked on, and that we then got some additional feedback from Ellen and Mark. But I think that having a sort of more substantial discussion, like I kind of want to introduce it tonight, but not necessarily be talking about it till 10:30. Does that align with what folks have in mind?
Oh, that sounds great.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
There at one, I can't tell you the exact place, line, paragraph, page from this moment, but there's one place where it says that this doesn't apply to a replacement system. And just want to clarify, does that mean that if a replacement system has to be placed, that it comes back to the board? Or is that saying that a replacement system is?
So let me
just to clarify, if you could
No, I
explain
thi-
that to me.
Yeah, no, I think great question. So what I'd like to do is I downloaded Lisa's. So let's look at Lisa's first. And then I think what you're describing is for the completeness of the application. We'll do that second. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, can we get a copy? Did you submit a red line version? I didn't see one.
No, I intentionally did not. It's not final. It's a discussion only, and I was told to send it to Ellen and Matt. So that's all I did. Yep.
Perfect. And so I think Lisa, I think I've got this.
Yeah, so basically, Matt, just so you know, I cut out all the rest of the regs. It's 10 pages. It's only this section that deals with drinking water wells. That's it. Not permits, not septic, nothing else.
Perfect. So I think I've got this up.
Yeah. So you can start at the beginning. The very top. No, keep going. Yeah. So I didn't really mess with the permits and the application requirements because I wanted to just focus on what I think is sort of the technical meat. of the drinking water, which is around quality. So that's what I really focus on, as well as tightening up some of our language regarding lots and properties. So if you scroll down a little bit, the first place this comes up, and this is a question for us to think about. We're not going to make decisions tonight, but I just wanted to like just put some, teasers in for us to think about. So the way it's written right now, it's talking, I changed the language from lot because it was wrong. It said one lot, but then later on it talked about one property, business, or residence, because as we know, a lot of properties can be composed of multiple lots and only have one, home on them. So that was an outdated, semantic. And so I updated it so that it's consistent with later on. But we do have an allowance, as everyone on this call knows, that in general, we say one well per residence or property or business. We are allowed, people are allowed to ask if they can put in an additional irrigation well, which we review on a case-by-case basis. So even though it's not the default that it's permitted, there could be circumstances, and we've had a few, where people maybe have agricultural land use that they've come to us and asked to put in an irrigation well that we vetted and decided it would be okay as long as it met potability. So the way this is written here is it talks about that you have to, that like basically show all of the sources, treatment works, distribution lines to the point where the distribution takes place within the building. So this is completely geared only to the situation for a potable well for a house or a business. And it doesn't really contemplate irrigation wells. And so my only thought is that if, we might want to consider adding some language that if, the board approves an additional irrigation well as described in section blah, blah, blah below, in addition, all the distribution throughout the property needs to be, depicted and considered. So that's just, it's a food for thought kind of thing.
Did you consider just having a section for drinking wells and then a section
No.
for irrigation wells?
No, because we're holding them to the same standards. So you'll see later that I do kind of deal with it later. So nothing we need to decide now, but yeah.
It sounds like that was one of the things you want to flag for mulling to
For
dig
future
into.
and mulling, exactly. And then I wasn't sure why we had the word for drilling. It says use of water from streams, swamps, or abandoned wells for drilling. Did it mean for drinking? Like, I think for drilling is not right. So I would just say get rid of it.
Mark, is Mark on still? Do you know what the context was for that was? Is it that they actually use water to cool down the drill as they're drilling, and we just don't want to contaminate the bedrock?
But that's not a well, and that's not an abandoned well necessarily, right? Or I was confused what that was referring to.
Is Mark still on the call?
Yeah. Mark, are you phone 11 or no? Maybe he's not. All right, well, I'm
Yeah,
flying.
Yes, phone 11, I'll explain. I believe how it reads is you can't use water from streams, swamps, or abandoned wells.
Yeah.
Pause. For drilling, any water uses that you need for the drilling, then you can't use it because that could introduce something problematic.
That is correct. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Playing
How about
around
so then
with
say
my
for
phone.
drilling of
The new one.
the potable
cooling
well?
water that
I
you-
think
Or
it's
if you just put
missing
for drilling at the front, for drilling, comma, use of
Yeah.
water for blah,
yeah,
blah,
it's just the
blah.
way it was written. I was
Yeah.
just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That is the coolant they use. Usually they'll,
Yeah, no.
I've seen well drillers pull out of a stream
Yeah,
at
no,
one
no.
time, so they
Yeah.
do that at times.
Yeah, no, I drill wells all the time. I just was confused by the way it was worded. Okay, that's
Yeah.
better.
Lisa, did
Okay.
you like this modification?
For drilling use of water, yeah,
Do.
that's much better. Thank you. Okay, so keep scrolling down a little bit because a lot of it is fine and very like boilerplate. So this is where I make it very clear that, if we do decide to permit an irrigation well, and it gets into in section 7, then they have to meet all of these. So the way it used to be worded before is like wells used for irrigation, which made it sound like this is going to be a commonplace thing, but yet we actually have prohibited the default, installation of additional wells unless we specifically case by case approve it. So I thought that was a clarification we needed. And then here, I just highlighted it because just showing the edit I made at the top, because down here it says 1 well per property, business, or residence. So we need to make sure we're
So
consistent.
that just is bringing it consistent.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
And I think it's actually much better to refer to it that way. Lot was just wrong. It must have been a vestige, from a previous version. So keep scrolling.
Am I looking for the next red line?
Yeah, then because the abandonment, a lot of this stuff is the
There we
same.
go.
Okay. So here's getting into the nitty gritty of what they should sample for. So basically what I propose to do is add PFAS in addition to VOCs, which, again, this is just me. And then, and then still require all the other things that we did. Added in the specific MCLs and lead action level for arsenic and lead, because it wasn't mentioned anywhere, and that seemed weird to me. So I put in the specific limits for arsenic and lead, and those are federal standards, and I don't anticipate them changing anytime soon. But for VOCs and PFAS, what I did is this paragraph on the bottom, where basically I say the Massachusetts drinking water standards for VOCs and PFAS as promulgated and presented in, this is the drinking water regulations, which apply to public well supplies. I basically said, we're going to take those standards that had in the past only applied to public or community or non-transient wells and apply them to our private wells, and that those are the standards by which we will assess quality and potability. And I reference the standards, and I just said, and as amended, shall apply to private wells installed in the town of Sherborn. Accordingly, measured concentrations of VOCs and PFAS shall not exceed these Massachusetts limits. I worded it like this for 2 reasons. One is to make it clear that we're taking things that in the past had only expressly applied in the Massachusetts regs to public water supplies, blah, blah, blah. And I'm now saying these for VOCs and PFAS also apply to private wells, and that therefore they become our potability quality standards for those 2 categories of chemicals. And I didn't put in any numbers because they're going to change. And so this way we don't have to keep amending the regulations every time there's a change, especially for PFAS, which is changing pretty much like every 3 months at this point, just based on new health advisories and information. So I thought it would be better for us if we just, keep it more whatever Massachusetts does for these sets of compounds, we're gonna, abide by. And then
Lisa, can I ask a follow-up question
Yep.
to that part?
Yep.
And again, I would say, like with the PFAS pieces, I'm sort of looking to you and Daryl as much more expert than I. In the current environment for a public water supply, is this required? Like, are we essentially saying both the pattern of testing and the threshold for action are similar to the state, or we're saying our pattern of testing,
No,
like property transfer, and then if you hit a number, if the state says it's a problem, and we're just pairing to that evolving threshold?
Yeah, so I didn't actually change, and that's a comment I have later. I didn't change the requirements for testing. So right now in our regs, you only need to test, I believe, if you apply for a permit. So for a replacement well, or a new well that's before for a new building construction, those are the only times that right now it needs to be tested. So a question I pose to the board later is, do we want to add something that says anytime there is a property transfer of a residence or business in town, that the well needs to be sampled? So Yeah, so this is my, that's the question I posed right there in that comment. And then, so that's a question for, again, we don't need to decide now. It's just, we should think about that. Should we add a requirement that as part of any real estate transaction for a business or residence that has a well, if we're gonna require testing? So that's something.
I'll save comments on that for another time because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
late.
It's a big question and a big issue, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a lot of opinions.
It's-
And then, yep, go ahead.
And, but again, this is for mulling, so. This
It is,
to
it's
raise
for
issues
mulling.
now.
I'm the provocateur.
I love it.
So, and then this is another thing we need to mull, which is if we find things, if things are found above these limits, are we going to require basically a point of entry treatment system? So that's a question. I just worded it that way, but I changed it because in the past, I think it said, if you find any VOCs, you need a whole system. And I think that if we're gonna tie ourselves, which from a technical and legal perspective, I think is the right thing to do, is to tie ourselves to the peer-reviewed, toxicologist vetted MMCLs that, apply to public water supplies. I feel more comfortable as a board member relying on the Massachusetts standards versus sort of mixing and matching. Like, I don't think we can say if anything's detected and then, but also have we can't have it both ways. So we can either say, I wrote it as we're going to have the Massachusetts drinking water standards that everybody else who has a, public water supply has to meet. We're going to apply those to our private wells. I have confidence in that. And like I said, from a legal standpoint and from a technical standpoint, both, I feel, confident and comfortable that that's a very valid approach. Others may think differently, but I also think we need to make it, workable. And, you think we're having problems now, like with room counts. I mean, we need to be fair and we need to be technically valid. So I thought it was better to change the wording to, hey, if we're going to say these standards apply, you have an issue that you need to fix, and that will also require deed recordings, etc., if you're above these standards that Massachusetts set. So that's the way I worded it. But again, people think about it. You can, mull it over. And I think those were the big things that I did. But at least I did it.
No, you did it. You're crushing
Thank
it.
you very much.
I worked to deadline, so I got it done yesterday.
That works. And so, Ellen, having discussed it, I think we can then circulate it to folks so that they've got it mulled. And then do we want to include this as an August 17th agenda item and a working session to hopefully focus? I think if we're going to have a sort of more substantive discussion, I think we should just have one. And I would favor having this one on the 17th. Does that sound right to folks?
Do you want me to put this in the form of what it would look like if it was a proposed change and put in the paper?
I don't think so.
Can you give us both?
So what I would say is, I think I think if we want to do that for illustration purposes, we can. I think Lisa kind of flagged, there are a couple of pieces that are philosophical questions about how we want to regulate.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we do anything to post it.
I think it's premature myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
So I think we circulate the red line. Lisa's introduced the issues for people to talk and think about. And then we can say, we'll have a working session on the 17th to hopefully arrive at a conclusion as a board to figure out how we then move that forward. Does that sound right to folks?
Sounds good to me.
Yes, I do have a question on, so I had drafted edits for this section as well on wells. And so do I maintain a separate document? Should I be weaving it into this one?
Why don't you
so
put it
that we
on
have-
top of my red line? Is that okay with other people? Be
So I
easier
think-
for me.
Ellen, from an open meeting standpoint, if Daryl supplies red line edits to this, and that is circulated as a document. Do you see any open meeting issues with that? If you
No,
don't,
because you've discussed it tonight.
okay. And so Daryl will provide updates to this red line version reflecting her take. That will be circulated as a document. And Ellen, if we could get that out.
Or actually, Daryl should send it to, once she does that, send it to me, and then I will
Okay.
circulate that document.
Okay.
And the
Perfect.
things that I did do not overlap with what Lisa has done. So I'm
Okay.
not going to be editing what she's edited already.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's clean.
I think
Yeah.
that's clean. And so what, again, I really like Lisa's like work to deadline. And so I think we should have a goal. I guess, Daryl, is that something you can get to Ellen soon so that we can get that circulated?
Well, I actually already sent it in months ago with the
Well, that counts as
with
soon.
the
So-
Amanda Zaretti stuff, but that was too complicated at that point. So I just have to pull it all out of that document and put it in here. So
is it
Yeah, and this is
realistic-
just that one section there also,
Yeah.
I presume everything
Yeah.
that you have applies to just this
Yeah.
section. Okay.
And so Daryl, if you can provide that version of
Yeah.
edits to Ellen, she can distribute it. I think, Ellen, I would love it if we could get that out earlier than the rest of our August 17th, just so people have plenty of time to mull and consider, so that we can really hit the ground running on the 17th. Does that operationally work okay for you?
Yeah, as long as I get it.
Perfect. All right, Daryl, no pressure.
I think I'm able to breathe a little bit more than I was in the last 3 months. So
All right, perfect. All right, let me stop sharing this, and then so I think some good next steps, and we'll have more of the discussion down the line. Ellen, I will send you the version that I've now manually edited, both as a product of this meeting and then as the version reflecting that language change. And then this one, I'm going to share my screen. I'm moderately confident I'm sharing the right screen. Do you guys see?
it's coming, but not there
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
Okay.
Are we up?
Yep.
And so I think that, Rebecca, this goes to the area that you had your question. So I can walk through this. Matt, I'd welcome your input, and Ellen and Mark have provided input as well. So by way of background, as we previously discussed, we have an established approach that is used to determine when an application is complete and ready to review. And so the goal of this regulatory change is not to introduce new requirements, but to make explicit and transparent the requirements that exist and the process that we follow, and that is based on our sort of typical patterns of practice. Is that fair to say, Ellen?
Yes, yes.
And so Matt and I took a stab at working at this. I then followed up with Mark and Ellen to just kind of stress test what Matt and I had come up with and to provide edits, which I think was quite helpful. Ellen, I remember as I'm doing this that you had one other suggestion as it related to the fee that is not reflected in the, oh, yep, you got it.
Yeah,
Operator and associate
I
fee.
did, I put them in there, but now even I have a couple more edits, even onto this that isn't on there yet. That I
Okay,
can,
Can you give us a red line version?
well, this is
So this is all new. So, I mean, there's,
yeah.
It's
Right.
it's all new tech. It's a whole new section.
Yeah.
Section A is, yeah.
And
Um,
if you look above, it shows that the removed, deleted text is shown in italics and new text is in bold.
and so I'll just kind of go through this again. I think there's less of this that is a substantive policy question, and it's more just clarity and shared understanding. So I don't think we've got anything that's similar to, sort of what's the best way to regulate or how do we set those standards, which I think takes more mulling. So as required by MGL Chapter 111, Section 31E, we shall act upon a complete application for a permit within 45 days from the date upon which such application is filed with said health agent or board of health. if a determination on complete application is not rendered within 45 days by the appropriate health agent or board of health, then said permit shall be deemed to have been granted. And so this is just our existing deadline. And so the key here is really us saying this is, from the board standpoint, this is what is represented by completeness. So a completed disposal work construction permit form signed by the property owner with the associated fee, which is set by the fee being set by the Board of Health from time to time. The plans as described, specifically showing the distances of any leach line, seepage pits, or other means of subsurface disposal from any private well or the private source of water supply to be used for drinking or culinary uses is required by section 10 herein. And Ellen, I'm trying to remember, I think was section 10 the one where it wasn't totally clear what it was referring to? Or am I conflating that?
I'm not sure.
So I will follow up on the section 10 part, because there was one section from a previous version that the kind of point of reference wasn't totally clear. We kept it in the draft language, but I think it was this section, and so we can dig into that more, unless Matt, if you remember.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I remember looking at things, and I think it was this section that wasn't clear. So we'll clarify that. The location of areas subject to the jurisdiction of the Concom pursuant to their underlying authority. So the plans will show the distances as well as the locations of any Concom areas. We'll have a written copy of an administrative approval, negative determination of applicability, or order of conditions from the Sherborn Conservation Commission.
And I would add in there that it's for this specific application, because we've had some people's, when we say, let them know we need a conservation approval, they'll say, oh, I have it already, but they have it for a building application. So we've got to put in there that it's for this specific application.
So if I added
That's a
something
good
like
point.
a written copy for this application of an administrative. So if I just put for this application between copy and of.
Yeah, that came up tonight with 7 Brook, where they had to go back. So that's even
Okay.
important, because that was a new application.
I would put the for this application at the end.
At the end, after Conservation Commission.
Yeah. Or for the specific application being submitted.
For now, just make a comment that we need to add language about specific application.
Perfect. A permit approving the suitable source of water supply pursuant to Regulation 2, domestic water supply, or complete application for the same as defined therein. This requirement shall not apply to replacement systems. And Rebecca, the rationale there is that if all you're doing is replacing the septic, there would be no associated well permit, since you don't need to build a well. And you could have wells that predate our permits, and so we may not have a permit on file.
We may want to clear that up unless the property needs a replacement well.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering because things change.
Mark, how often do we need to have a replacement septic and a replacement well? I feel like we've definitely seen it. Typically, that's the well being moved as a consequence of the circumstances of the septic.
That is correct. That's why I just didn't want it so close that we forget about maybe the 5% that might need to relocate a well.
So it may
it's
just be
probably a
simple.
small percentage, but still, they might say, well, it doesn't say that in your procedures.
It might just simplify things to have a statement there that double checks that everything still applies from the original circumstances.
Matt,
I would just say this requirement should not apply to replacement systems in which the existing well is not being changed.
Oh, I like that. Replacement systems.
Perfectly stated.
And the existing. Perfect. Okay. I like that, Matt. Perfect. And then if an EHIR is required, that needs to be provided. And an application for approval of a sewage disposal system shall be considered filed on the date upon which a complete application is presented by the person who is seeking the permit or their authorized representative. So essentially, I mean, what this boils down to is we need to have a plan that reflects the things that our plans have historically required. We need to have Concom jurisdictional areas. We need the written copy of what we see in section C, and we need to have the well permit joined since they're intrinsically related to each other as it relates to siting on the property, and certainly in the best interest of the applicant when that is conjoined with the application for the septic. Then we sort of change B and C just because now we have a section A. And then we, I think, tried to make a pairing to the well requirements for completeness so that, again, they were sort of mutually supporting. So the Board of Health shall act upon a complete application for well construction permit for the purposes of this regulation. 2, domestic water supply complete application shall include the completed well construction permit application form signed by the property owner and associated fee, which is set by the Board of Health from time to time.
I gotta bow out for a couple minutes.
No worries.
Okay.
We don't have anything to vote on, so we will, I think you've got this, and if you have any other edits, feel free to communicate them. We'll probably do this in the first meeting in September.
Okay, and do I have this? Was it in the Google Drive?
I think
Ellen?
it's MV-MB proposal Google Docs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we can also send a Word version. Just because then it's easier to track on your own. And so the plan drawn to scale indicating boundary lines, the applicant's property, the location number of wells is required under section 7, and the location of all existing and proposed structures and septic systems within 200 feet. And the location of a proposed right-of-way, traveled way is defined in these other sections. Similar requirements to Conservation Commission, the same conditions that we saw in section C above, and then essentially the same determination of completeness. So again, I don't think any of this is controversial. Ellen, I can make those two. If you can send me, can you send me this version? Is this a Word?
Yeah.
Is it PDF?
Yeah, well, I can put it in Word. I have it in Word.
If you can put it in Word, and then I can make the edits that we talked about, and we can recirculate to people, and then we can plan on having this another working session on this for the first September meeting, with the goal of having it come out of that ready to go to, I guess, would it go to town council next and then posting to the newspaper?
Yeah, would you want to do these changes to the regulations like piece by piece, or would you have one big public hearing?
I sort of feel like I want to make forward progress, and I worry a little bit that some of them could take more time and back and forth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would almost be okay saying we're going to do it segmentally, just so that we could keep moving forward. Does that sound right to folks?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, I think this is helpful.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this, I find it useful.
Do
it all together.
Yep. And I think this very much reflects our existing workflow. It just, for people who haven't navigated before, it makes it clear and explicit and transparent, which I think is appealing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Ellen, if you send me the Word version, I will update those. And Matt, I may just ask you to take a look, because you're much better at efficient speech than I am. But I've written down what we said, which is what you said, which I feel good about.
Sounds good. Happy to look at it.
Perfect. And I said we'd end before 10:30. So I think the goal here is, again, I don't think there's mulling, it's just the language. I feel like, yeah, I feel good. Are there any other agenda topics that we need for the August meeting?
I have, I just couldn't put it in this form of the italics and bold and all that. Kind of minor administrative edits. One that we needed for the ledge disruption to include it to apply to single family homes. That's probably the most significant. And then the others are a few word changes here and there. So I'll pull those together separately because maybe they would be easy to
let's-
go along with.
Daryl,
can
let's
you hear
also
me?
look at that with the codification project too,
Okay.
whatever that's called. But I think that sounds perfect. Do we want to have that on the August 17th agenda?
Yeah, I'll get that out because
Okay,
I'm most of the way there.
love it.
Did you, I thought you had asked me to work on it, or can I work on this with you?
So I think the ledge, I'm trying to remember for the ledge disruption permit. I'm trying to remember, maybe Ellen, can you circulate the previous breakdown task? I think what Daryl is describing, Rebecca, is sort of smaller scale than what we talked about for the topic you were going to work on. I think this is really like principle instead of principle, like kind of very minor verb changes.
Yep.
And so I think that maybe Ellen, we talked about the task assignment a couple of months ago.
Yep.
If you can recirculate, I think we had like a Word document that divvied it up. I know one of the, because I feel like we've got plenty of work. I guess the other thing I wanted to flag is for the EHIR regulation piece, I think that's one that is probably a bigger bite at the apple in terms of trying to figure out how to communicate it. I think that, one question is just how, we sort of talked about the intersection with the planning board and trying to think about the kind of connectedness of projects. And so, one question I had is, do we want to keep a separate kind of group looking at any changes to the EHIR section, and it's kind of for clarity of presentation and consistency with our prior discussion and revisions, or should that be folded into a larger discussion with the planning board? And I think that's a little bit of a philosophical question, and I don't have a good sense.
They don't have to be mutually exclusive.
Well, I think it's one where if we say we're going to fold it in the planning board, we should just say, yep, that'll be the strategy. Here's kind of how we're thinking about it. And then how does the planning board create the connection for parts of a project so that there's clarity there, because then the applicability of the EHIR gets really clear. Whereas if the planning board or some other structure doesn't manage the connectedness, then we have to pull that into the reg, and it's sort of a different, at least that's my thinking. Matt, I don't know.
I think the one way they could be separated is that, the existing regulation sort of needs some editing too, to just make it clear. And that's like, I think there are two problems. There's the, how do we define a project problem? And that really requires intersection with the planning board. And then there's once we've designed a project, what are the thresholds that project has to meet? And that second part seems like it's sort of a tractable Board of Health problem. So that could be sort of addressed. And then separately, and probably easier than the, what is a project question? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that already, is a full group already delegated for that? I think I was only
Yes,
given
Matt
one
and I,
task.
Matt Beavers and
Yeah,
I are
I was
working
looking
on
So
at
I
that.
think at the moment I'm working with Matt Vitale on editing the EHIR, and I'm working with Daryl on the planning board engagement.
Yeah, because I was only given one task. I thought that was the ledge disruption, but it sounds like maybe not.
You got one task because you're flying solo, and I think everybody got 2 half tasks. So
Yeah,
everybody
that's fine.
got,
I'm totally happy to do it. I also like working with people. So
that sounds good. Maybe once you get it to a place where you're ready to do it, and if you have more bandwidth, we can figure out kind of where we need help. Would that work okay, Rebecca?
sure, do you want me to try to get it for the 8/17 meeting?
I'd say why don't we get it so that we just have the working group on the drinking water, because I feel like that will have a real discussion, particularly for PFAS. So why don't we have that for the mulling stage by the first meeting in September? Sound good?
Yeah, fine.
Perfect. Any other hot topics for August 17th?
I think we got a chewy one.
I think we got a chewy one, and we want to really give it the time so we can finish it.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think
Thanks for all the work you did. Nice
Yeah.
job.
super
Yeah.
helpful. All right. Well, with that, we're still before 10:30.
Yay.
Ellen, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Do you think I'm forgetting anything?
No, I think you have it all.
All right. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
You betcha. Oh, so moved.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think I heard that Matt Beaver seconded.
Yep,
Okay, Daryl, I.
Matt Beaver's eye.
Lisa, I.
Becca Honeywell, aye.
Matt Vitae, aye. And Mark and Ellen, I know you guys have been incredibly busy. So, we're now closed, but also just a huge thank you to you guys, because I know that things have just been flat out with a lot going on, and really appreciate all your hard work.
And hope you feel all better, Ellen.
Yeah, I
right.
do. Way better. Thanks.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Right.
Bye.